I am pumped. I'm excited to have you guys here. Dan Richards from Dedunking and Neal Sendlak from Gnostic Informant. So I couldn't find two feistier guys on X than you two.
Yes.
So just kind of looking around that platform. You guys let each other have it, man, and many other people. So
Oh
this,
yeah.
I'm gonna try to keep you guys separated today. We'll put the gloves on if we have to, and yeah, but no rules today. What we're trying to get to is some truth and some understanding about ancient history. You guys both have different perspectives about ancient history, of course. So we'll get into all that. When we talk about ancient history, I think that the thing that's kind of the event or the time period that makes ancient history kind of interesting from the get-go is this period of the Younger Dryas, where you've got this potential extinction event and this potential comet impact. And different people think that the megafauna went extinct during this time because of just climate change, and different people think that they went extinct because of some cataclysm, and potentially the cataclysm or the comet could have disrupted a global civilization that existed at that point in time. And I feel like that's kind of like a really big key story and something to discuss first before we get into some of these debates about the pyramids and the Sphinx and Baalbek and Gunung Padang and maybe Göbekli Tepe. I think you guys disagree about Pillar 43, for example, and potentially some of the symbolism that exists on there. So, who wants to start? Maybe if we can start at the Younger Dryas cataclysm and just give me why you think that this event was or was not a significant cataclysm or extinction event for the planet.
You want to start, or you want me to?
Yeah, because I don't
You
I'm
ready?
not an expert in
Okay.
geology, so I kind of appeal to the consensus on this one,
Okay.
just because I don't have a strong understanding of the science behind it all.
Cool. Fair. So Dan.
Well, with the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, or the Younger Dryas in general, the idea being that, I mean, the big dovetail that gets all the Atlantis bros going is that, Plato says around the same time as the Younger Dryas happened. And we know that there was, like where I live, massive flooding that Randall Carlson's made famous in the last few decades. And we know that there was massive disruption of the North Atlantic, I forget the name of it, the North Atlantic currents and all this stuff, that basically the whole planet's system, the ecology, was just completely annihilated to a degree. And so it's not a surprise that we see megafauna extinctions in the North Americas, especially considering the floods and all that. It does seem to me, and a lot of other people, like this was the destruction of, now I don't take it as far advanced as some people do, but a destruction of a civilization that was, in my mind, the big thing is they connected the old world and the new. There is, I think, ample evidence to show that there was not nearly as much as we see today, but there was cultural contact from the old world and the new world. And I think the Younger Dryas was the beginning of that falling apart. And now when we go to the impact hypothesis, which is where it gets a lot more spicy, this is really, I think, a problem with the modern era where we get to kind of pick and choose our scientists like we do our politicians. Like, I don't really like what that guy says. That they're arguing back and forth over the same black mat layers, over the same nano diamonds. The debunker arguments, I dug into Mark Boslow's debunking of the Greenland nano diamonds, for example, and he's like, "Oh, there's a missing data set." It's not like there's a missing sample in the archive. Somebody didn't press the numbers in and put it into this data archive. So there's not numbers on a page is all the complaints are about. And it's to the point where the journal hasn't retracted the paper. So it's kind of a bullshit argument that he's making, but it's relying on scientific ignorance. People don't know that, you don't have, it makes it sound like we're missing this ice core that should be there that anybody could test, but these things are like any other sample, they get used up, right? So, in my mind, not only do we have ample evidence for contact between the old world and the new before.
Like what? Like what's the evidence?
Oh, the evidence? We could go with all kinds of stuff. I mean, you got, first of all, you got all kinds of iconography. We've got genetic evidence at this point, even down in Easter Island. They're showing genetic evidence for this. There's genetic evidence in the Americas all across with the haplogroup that's on the border of the American-Canadian water. But just the
That would go back to just humans in general. Like we're Homo sapiens, so
Well,
there's
I
going to be genetic connection. You know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we use these to like track where people go, and so when we've got when they have a genetic anomaly that their predictive patterns don't account for, at that point, this is a problem with their model. And I mean, we've got just the elongated skull, the fact that people practiced artificial cranial deformation all along the coastlines of almost the entire world, that right there kind of shows that there was that contact. I mean, Neanderthal settled Java 60,000 years ago on boats. Rats make it across the ocean on boats. I'm going to have a real hard time believing that Cro-Magnon or Homo sapiens sapiens couldn't figure it out, you know?
So is there evidence of from the DNA from Aborigines from Australia, Papua New Guinea, in South America that points to this as well?
There's a tiny bit, it's an Easter Island from what I understand, but it might be in South America. I'm not up to date on all this stuff, but
Okay.
it was in 2024 was the Easter Island paper, and that was a big deal because it showed both directions of genetic flow into the pre-contact in Easter Island population.
Okay.
So the theory is that there was a comet that hit the Earth, and it caused the Younger Dryas. Period.
That's the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis theory. It's more of an air burst that melted glaciers over the northern hemisphere. But yeah,
My understanding is we've never found a comet of that size. If it did hit, it would have had to hit a glacier, and the glacier would have to melt. But the science works without a glacier. There's enough evidence for natural climate change. Another thing that kind of throws me off with this is, like, let me ask you, why do you think it's called Younger Dryas?
because there was multiple of these kinds of events throughout history. Yeah.
There's an older Dryas right before this period, from 18,000 BC to 14,000 BC. So was there another comet then? Because it's actually, that period is actually almost worse than the Younger Dryas. So we're talking from the whole 18,000 BC or before present all the way to 10,000 before present. That whole period basically was a cooling period in general. So it throws it to me, it debunks the idea that this comet hit right when Plato or right when Göbekli Tepe was, because we're talking this had to have happened before the older Dryas, then the older Dryas makes no sense.
Well, let's see. I personally, I find that. I mean, by that logic, I could say the KT impact didn't kill the dinosaurs because we didn't need a comet to wipe out. We've got all these other extinctions events that didn't use comets. So why do we need a comet?
We found the comet craters.
Exactly. And you know the kind of uphill battle Alvarez faced finding that comet? A lot of skepticism, of abject just cynicism. As a matter of fact, science didn't even accept the idea of punctuated equilibrium until the KT impact in 1980. It was hung up on gradualism as opposed to, you can Google that if you want. It was the KT impact is when that really became a thing where science began to accept what they call punctuated equilibrium, which is, back in the day, it was all about catastrophism. Science proves the Bible right. We had floods, we had comets, we had destruction of Jericho. Then it switched from, in the 1800s, you had Darwin, and I forget the geologist's name, but both of them about the same time turned things on this gradualistic ear. Then it was gradualism. Floods had nothing to do with it for 100 years. And then Alvarez comes along and kicks the tires on that, and now all of a sudden we realize what any 5-year-old would know. It's like, well, sometimes things happen slowly, and sometimes things happen quickly. But anyway, my point there is you can't, in my opinion, saying, well, this didn't require a comet impact, ergo that didn't require a comet impact.
Yeah, but we found the comet impact, though. We found the crater, then there it is. Well, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Could be anything, and not just a comet potentially, but could have been anything. But I think that people, it's not necessarily finding the comet. I think it's more that people are looking at sea level rises, dramatic, like very, very quick, dramatic changes in global temperature, and extinction of megafauna all over the planet, but specifically in North America. When you look at the short-faced bear, the saber-toothed tiger, the woolly mammoth, the species of horses, pretty much most of the megafauna all went extinct right around the same time.
And we found evidence for that. And that's what I'm wondering is, like, where's the evidence for the civilization other than microlith tools, stone tools, wood tools.
But
where's all the metal? Where's all the, you know?
But before we get to that, maybe just kind of double clicking into what could have caused the extinction of all of these huge creatures, and what could have caused the dramatic sea level rise and the temperature change, if not some type of a cataclysm or
Well, like I said, my understanding is from the science is actually it works pretty well just with natural climate change. That's, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like an expert in this field at all, but like I said, I have to appeal to the people that actually study this stuff their entire lives, because I really can't get to it that way.
I think it's overhunting is what the main explanation is. Climate change, of course, occurred because we can measure that, but overhunting is a big explanation for the decrease in megafauna species globally. And it wasn't just North America, but they seem to take the brunt of it in North America.
And maybe there was some sort of event. I mean, I'm open to that, but then I'm still going to ask, where's the evidence of this civilization?
Yeah.
I'm still not seeing that. You know?
Yeah. What would you say to that?
Oh, to the evidence of the civilization.
Yeah.
Well, again, there's like the elongated skull maps are a good place to start, where you see that thousands of years ago there was the same kind of cultural practices all around the world, and it was all coastal. And if you look at people compare it to ritual scarring, which, okay, that's fine. But if you look at ritual scarring or tattooing and stuff, it tends to be very localized. You don't see people in South America doing what people in Africa do as far as ritual scarring goes. It's a very different genealogy of how this came to be. But this artificially elongated skulls, it hugs the coastline of the world. And it seems to be attached to these ancient, further back ideas. We have things like...
the skulls come from after the Younger Dryas, though, right?
Many of them come from before.
Yeah. Okay.
Many of them come from before.
For the sake of argument, let's say there was a civilization that knew each other in the old world and the new world, and that explains the elongated skulls. Okay, so now what we have is a seafaring old world proto-civilization that does elongating skulls. That doesn't sound advanced. That sounds primitive.
Well, I mean, see, that's where I said at the beginning, I don't believe in advanced ancient high technology. I don't think that anybody was out there practicing metallurgy. I don't think that anybody was out there building rocket ships or crystal networks to communicate around the globe or anything like that. But a civilization that could navigate by astronomy, that could sail the seas, could easily translate those things quickly into building megalithic structures on the ground. And I think that's what we see in places like Göbekli Tepe. The same kind of teamwork that you use to sail is the same kind of teamwork that you would use to raise a rock. And the same kind of, I'm going to sail towards that star, is the same way you would use to line a building up to a star. And was why we see in the earliest things veneration of like a great example is the Orion symbolism that we see. I think it's at Cyber that we see like a picture of a dude with a club and Taurus coming right at him. Mm-hmm. And this is like, we go back to, you see Taurus in the damn cave paintings at Lascaux, and this is like 35,000 years ago. And it's pretty much no question because it's got the Pleiades on its shoulder. So you can't really, you can argue it, but the odds become it becomes a whole lot less when you see the Pleiades stuck next to it. Otherwise, you could say this is just a bull.
Well, that's what my understanding is. I don't know how you would know it's Taurus other than it's just someone drawing a bull.
Well, if could you pull that?
Yeah, pull that up.
Pull out a picture of the Lascaux Caves bull up, please.
Because one of the areas that I really look at is Hellenistic Roman period, and that particular zodiac is adopted by the Babylonians, but it's mostly a Hellenistic thing. You find it in the Hellenistic period. Eratosthenes, for example, was one of the first to talk about the precession of the equinoxes in the 3rd century BC.
I guess type in Taurus with it because it shows there's one that has the Pleiades like in the corner of the thing.
Mm. Yeah, and so actually, I was watching your discussion with Ben Kerwick, and okay,
that becomes really difficult to explain.
No, I don't think that looks like or what is that supposed to be? That's supposed to be the 7 stars.
The Taurus with the Pleiades next to
One,
it.
2, 3. You have 6 dots, not 7.
Well, I mean, there's only 6, and there's only been 6 for a while now, but yeah. I mean,
Pleiades is 7.
it,
And then see, look, it looks like someone just sort of like made the dots inside of it. That's what it looks like to me.
yeah. And that's fair. I mean, I
Yeah.
understand that a lot of people can be dismissive of this, but like, I guess in my mind, a lot of this comes from like a misunderstanding of what the.
So the dots on this were that are within those purple lines, those were just added on top of it, right? So those aren't.
That's
Yeah,
what it looks like.
Many of those were added on top of it.
Yeah.
That's not very convincing.
It's not convincing. Yeah.
No, it's from the work of I always forget her first name, but Markie Wolke. She's a French researcher, and she's actually laid out almost the entire zodiac inside of there. And there's a reason that's like when you say that the zodiac's a Hellenistic thing, you know, the zodiac's a timepiece. Okay, now it don't matter. You've got 12 equidistant, more or less, patterns of stars in the sky that the sun rises into throughout the course of the year. This is used to mark time, and the convention is carried over today into our clock. We still see our 12s. We don't use a 24-point clock. We use 12 because of these 12. So different cultures throughout history would attribute different things. And at one point, the Greeks even had the scales as part of the crab's claws. But the point is that this is a timepiece. So it doesn't matter. Think about our clocks today. You can erase all the numbers, but the cardinal points, the solstices and the equinoxes, and you still know what's going on. So to me, it's like that the zodiac goes way, 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 way
Yeah, but the
back.
number 12 is kind of arbitrary. We're grouping these. We're going, that's 1, 2, 3. You could make 18. You could make 36 if you want.
Except for that there's 12 lunar cycles and 12 menstrual cycles
In
a
a solar year, roughly.
So yeah,
Roughly.
so then
It's
then
like
all
12
this-
and a half.
Yeah, so
I
then all
mean,
of a sudden
doesn't match up.
Well, then the convention makes sense.
Well, that's why the Babylonians did it. That's
Yeah.
why they have a 360. I understand that. Babylonians do have a 12. The whole 12 thing starts with Babylon, which would be maybe even Sumer. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how early. But the Babylonians definitely have some sort of zodiac, a 12 zodiac, which is what the Greeks adopt. Plato even talks about adopting. He calls it Syrian, but we know what he means by Syrian. He means Babylonian. And then he's like, well, we Greeks just do it better. But we got it from them, but we did it better. Anyways, but yeah, so I understand like the zodiac does have some pretty ancient, or even Leo as a constellation is Babylonian. I've never seen any evidence that Leo existed in the Egyptian. You were talking to Ben, and and I'm not saying he lied to you, but I think he was wrong about this. You asked him, were the Egyptians into the whole zodiac thing? And he said, oh, they're plastered all over the place on the walls. And then he said, we have the Dendera zodiac.
And that's a Ptolemaic thing. Yeah.
It's 50 BC. So it's like, that doesn't help us. And then I've never seen any, I even asked some Egyptologists, I watched that video and I was asking around, is it true that there's zodiacs plastered all over Egypt? No, none. So I'm not saying he lied to you, but I just think he got that information wrong. But yeah, I will grant you the zodiac does have ancient roots, especially in Babylon. But I don't know how you can get back to like Göbekli Tepe, because then you have to ask like what's up with the gaps? Like why are we seeing so many gaps in between Göbekli Tepe, for example, or even the pyramids, and then all of a sudden all the way down to Babylon and then Greece?
Well, in my opinion, I don't think we do. Like we just saw it with the bull. We have a disagreement there. Dr. Giulio Magli, he's like the premier archaeoastronomer in the world, and he's got a paper that's like basically what's evidence and analogy in archaeoastronomy, I think is the name of the paper, and it talks about using a bridgehead. And when you look at archaeoastronomy, like a lot of times you don't know what the old culture believed, right? We just know that they have this iconography. Göbekli Tepe is a great example of this. So when Dr. Martin Sweatman makes his Göbekli Tepe Pillar 43 hypothesis, for example, he doesn't just say, well, I want this to be something, or he takes and starts from something we know, Scorpio. We can identify this. If assuming this means the Scorpion, where can we go from there? Now, this, a lot of people will say that that's not how we do science, but iconography you get very much can be passed along from one point to another. We see iconography. The Master of Beasts iconography is a great example of something that jumps the pond. The pictures of a woman or a man with a snake in each hand or a lion in each hand, or sitting with an animal on either side, just flanked by animals and seeming to control them. It's something you see in the Old and New World. These symbols, like some people might not interpret them as astronomical and other people might. But again, in my mind, like to me, it seems like it's very plain that the ancients were using the sky to determine all kinds of things. And so that's where,
of course.
that's where the convention of splitting the sky into these 12 things comes from. Again, in Lascaux Caves, they found evidence for this. And the woman that did that work there, could you pull up the Aubrey Blanchard moon bone, please, Ryan?
While he's pulling that up, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go
I
ahead.
was going to say the Scorpio one is an issue for me because that's one of the ones that's not in the Babylonian zodiac. So it's in the Greek one. And I would say, okay, we have a Greek zodiac that has Scorpio. I'm a Scorpio, by the way. And
Scorpios.
yes,
When's your birthday?
Scorpios.
When's your birthday?
October 25th.
Okay.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, in between Scorpio and what's the next one supposed to be, like Libra or something? Or
I don't know.
I forgot. Anyways, there is a 13th arbitrary constellation called Ophiuchus. It's very small, so they don't really normally include it. But you can make 13 is what I'm saying. But anyways, back to what Scorpio. My question would be, why is it skipping from Göbekli Tepe, and then the Babylonians don't have it, and then the Greeks adopt from the Babylonians, admit they're adopting from the Babylonians, but they change it back to Scorpio?
Because we don't have everything in the record. That's why, why do we have Greek coins in the middle of India, but no Greek coins halfway there? Because Alexander the Great made it over there and he didn't drop any in between. It's not like, it doesn't mean that there's none that traveled in between. It just means these are the ones that we found in the record. You know, it's like we find Clovis points and then it might be 500 years before we find anything else in the record in that area. It doesn't mean there was nobody running around then. Now, this bone is from Aubrey Blanchard in France. This is 3500 BC, or 35,000 BC, excuse me. It's really funny. We recently heard that paper that was like talking about proto-writing, and it can't hold a candle to this shit. This is the different phases of the moon and the path of the moon as seen from the cave at Aubrey Blanchard where this bone was found. So this is somebody tracking the phases of the moon and the path of the moon 35,000 years ago. This is the oldest, I would argue this is the oldest example we have of a true artificial memory system that goes beyond Dan O's Neal 3 spear points or whatever, right? But they had tash marks.
Sure.
But
I'm not surprised about this at all.
no, and but my point here is that they were very complicated ideas about this. And so when we go back into history and we find that, you know, the Babylonians kind of just, like many things like the zodiac, it just kind of just pops up. The zodiac doesn't pop up one symbol and then another symbol and then another. It kind of just pops up. It's kind of like the alphabet. We just see it as a system. And I would argue that when we look at for example, the caves, the lion the bull that we were just looking at, the bull in Saibuk, and other symbols like that giving them an astronomical interpretation should be as high on the list as eating, as high on the list as hunting, as high on the list as sex. This is something that the ancients all were about. And as a quick aside, so many people are, you'll see online being like, man, the dude that tracked this moon thing, it wasn't a dude. This was some chick that didn't want to get pregnant. We fell right in there on that black spot, and she knew it. She passed that on to her daughter, so the same problem didn't happen. Sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, no, like this is another misconception that I've noticed with a lot of people who think that there's a consensus about hunter-gatherers and I forgot who said this, but it was someone was debunking, and I forgot who said this. Loincloth wearing savages.
That's probably Ben.
Yeah. Sounds like
Sounds
Ben.
like Ben.
Ooh, ah, ooh, like cavemen. Yeah. That's not what any of the academic literature is saying. Actually, the academic literature surprisingly is talking about how more advanced than most people think. They had the same brains as us. They're Homo sapiens. They're extremely intelligent, and they're working with what they have, with the knowledge that they have. But they can track the stars. They use the stars to navigate.
Were they saying that before the discovery of Göbekli Tepe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Göbekli Tepe, it further made it more like stronger about how, but they've never, because before Göbekli Tepe, this is what no one talks about. We already knew about Jericho. 9,000 BC. We already knew about Knossos, 7,000 BC, and we had all these other Anatolian little place spots in Asia Minor and Syria, Middle East, 6,000, 5,000, 8. Like there's all these. It actually just kind of pushed it back a little bit more, and was surprising to see how big these structures were. But I don't think anyone was really like blown. Well, people are blown away by this. I'm not going to say that people weren't blown away by Göbekli Tepe, but we knew they were capable of this stuff. I mean, Jericho is pretty amazing. The not the walls of Jericho. That's a Bronze Age addition to what was there. But there's a Neolithic layer of Jericho, and it was pretty advanced. They're building structures and stuff. Maybe not as big as the pillars, but it's not that far off. And same in Knossos. Knossos is on an island on Crete. So they're seafaring in 7,000 BCE, and they're building pretty advanced structures for the time period. So we're only talking about a couple more thousand years to add it on to what we already knew. And so what I'm saying is, their hunter-gatherer as a classification doesn't mean cavemen running around naked with leaves over their junk. You know what I mean? They're actually these people there's like mini agricultural evidence of like a little bit of like mini agriculture, not like full blown agriculture, but like you could see they know what they're doing. They know how to survive. They know how to live.
How far do you think ancient seafaring goes back, like trans ocean travel?
That's a good question. I mean, I never even thought about that, but farther than most people think.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they get to these islands, so we know whether they're just making rafts or they're making some sort of ancient like vessel. I don't know, but they definitely know how to get around. You know.
So I mean, the traveling from continent to continent thing that you opened up with then doesn't seem like it's that far out of the realm of possibility. I
mean, there's a lot of islands in the Pacific. They're little, but you could get lucky going island to island. Maybe that's maybe one way to think about it. I wouldn't be surprised if someone figured it out. But I mean, this Pacific is gigantic. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Kelp Highway hypothesis?
What's that?
Hey, Ryan, pull up a map of the Kelp Highway hypothesis, please. It's the new theory that's kind of supplanted the Bering Land Bridge, because they have to start explaining these sites that predate the separation of the two ice sheets. And so this will look a lot like the maps of elongated skull distribution, but you'll see that it basically the idea is that they traveled down the coast, and this is why they ended up all the way down in Chile and stuff in a relatively short period of time compared to overland travel. But I guess this kind of gets exactly into where the skepticism stuff starts to make me scratch my head. Like, okay, we got like Paracas, for example, with all the goofy Paracas skulls. No question, these guys were doing elongated skulls. Right there, 5 miles from Paracas, you got the candelabra of the Andes, which I assume you know what this is. Okay, it faces, you can see that thing 12 miles out to sea. You got in the Pacific Northwest, these dudes practicing cranial modification like mad. Thousands of these skulls in the record. So the idea that the candelabra of the Andes wasn't some sort of symbol, hey guys that do the same shit we do, we're down here and you're up there, even when science is saying that these guys were probably connected. To me, that's where we get into this area where it goes from being skeptical to being cynical. It goes from just I'm not so sure about that to just, that's just a bunch of bullshit. It's like, well, how did they get to White Sands? Oh, they took boats down the coast. Okay, well, how did they get to Paracas? Oh, they took boats down the coast, so these guys couldn't communicate with those. Oh, no, that's out of the question. And we see, I'm not saying that's you, Neal. I'm just saying that this is the mainstream opinion. If you say that the Chinook and the people in Paracas were in any sort of contact, they're going to laugh at you. But at the same time, even the DNA backs that up. So, and cultural practices definitely back it up. I mean, even the same thing where they both lived off the damn kelp. They even today up in the Pacific Northwest, they lean on the Chinook and the Chelas people to help manage their kelp resources.
And I think if we're going to grant all that, what we're left with is highly advanced in survival skills and getting around and finding food and staying alive. Like, I still don't see like highly advanced, power tools, that type of thing.
Well, you're not going to see that from me. I don't believe that they had power tools. And
But
stuff.
a lot of people,
Well, sure,
on your
absolutely,
end
absolutely.
do. Yeah.
But a lot of people also, I mean, a lot of people didn't think Göbekli Tepe could have been settled until it could have been created until we had organized farming. A lot of people didn't think Easter Islanders were ever in contact with South America. That just got overturned last year, and that's kind of, in all honesty, this is again kind of hubris and just almost sadism with it. It's just like, what the hell, dude? This tiny little speck out in the middle of the fucking ocean. You're gonna tell me that you guys could find that, but they couldn't find the entire landmass that's just a few thousand miles to the side? It just doesn't make any sense. But it took them actually finding DNA and them finding genetic remnants left over from sweet potato and from ginger and a few other, where the oldest habitable layer on Easter Island shows foods from both the old and the new world. So these guys were definitely in contact with both, and their legends say that they were looking for this place. Their king was like, had a dream, he knew this place was there, and this is where you get into, what Axis Mundi is, right? Like world naval. Every world naval is located smack dab in the center of that culture. Delhi, a Wailing Wall, all this stuff, except for Easter Island. If you're part of that culture, if you're part of the Polynesian culture, that is like the farthest flung corner you could go to have your world naval, unless the sea levels were lower. As Matt pointed out the first time I was here, if you lower the sea levels, all of a sudden Easter Island looks extremely centrally located in all of the islands. As a matter of fact, it's like the last waypoint before you jump across the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. It's like the longest jaunt there. It makes a lot of sense that there were people there. And I don't think they had power tools, but I think this is a great that leaning to either power tools or it's bullshit. Power. They had power tools or it's complete bullshit. I think that's really missing the middle ground in that these guys. There were complicated people that existed back then. They did a lot more than we give them credit for. A lot more than science is giving them credit for. Science is doing that pendulum thing. It's either all the way here or all the way there. But in reality, these guys were complicated. Sometimes their myths actually tell us what they were up to. Sometimes we should actually listen to what they had to say before we just knee-jerk out of it. Now, we got to take it with a grain of salt. Thankfully, we have the cargo cults as an example as to how quick things can evolve and get bastardized, right? But
something I'm just asking the people watching this is like, if there was some sort of like narrative, mainstream narrative that had to be held up. This is what I hear a lot. Like, there's a mainstream narrative that has to be held up, and scholars are just like, basically, to keep their jobs, they have to uphold the mainstream narrative. If that was the case, then why would mainstream scholars date Göbekli Tepe to 10,000 BC? Why wouldn't they just say it's 3,000 BC?
Because carbon dating.
Exactly. The evidence. So if the evidence shows something, it gets published, and that's it. And people change their. And another thing is, like, there's this whole thing, like, scholars to be an academic, you have to tote the line. But like every single scholar I ever met personally is actively trying to reverse some sort of status quo. They're trying to become famous. They're trying to discover something that's brand new. They're trying to push back dates. They're trying to prove something wrong. That's the whole point of a dissertation, is to debunk something. That's how this whole thing keeps moving. So I just think it's kind of odd that you hear a lot. I'm not saying you guys say this, but you hear this all the time, that scholarship is just there to keep the status quo. And I think it's the exact opposite.
I wouldn't say that it's there to keep the status quo, but I would say that, like we saw it with Clovis first, and for the people that think that that's just a one-off, man, you go back to, there was a guy, Ailshide Rlicka, who was a Smithsonian Institute anthropologist back in the early days, and he was, same thing, if you posit it, it's even in the Wikipedia page, if you posit that there was peopling of the Americas that happened before about 3,000 years ago, you could kiss your academic career goodbye. It's in the Wikipedia page, if I remember the exact quote, is something along the lines of, it made it virtually impossible for anybody to have a successful career in anthropology if they believed that. And this is, you pull
I have a hard time believing that.
Pull up the Folsom Tradition Wikipedia page, please,
and
Ryan.
I'm not saying that people don't get pushback for coming out. This is what happens all the time. A scholar will publish a dissertation that shocks the consensus, and it's normal This is how it's supposed to go. There's supposed to be a reaction. Hey, you're wrong. This is my data. And then, well, no, actually, your data is wrong because of this. And it's supposed to be a dialectic. It's supposed to be a back and forth debate. And the truth, the data speaks for itself. People eventually become convinced by whoever is most convincing, you know? So like you might, in the beginning, you might have a bunch of friction. For example, there was a scholar, I can't remember his name, but he was the first scholar to propose that Abraham didn't even exist. And he got tons of backlash. How dare you say that? How dare you say that the patriarch of the Abrahamic religions doesn't exist? That's insane. And he just, eventually people started to go, actually, there is no evidence for this guy. Like the Bible says he fought these wars with these 10 kings. They mention the names of the kings. None of those kings are found in any archaeological record. They're not mentioned in any sources, not Babylonian, not Egyptian. And there's five other Levantine kings involved in this war. None of those are mentioned either. And it's like, did this war even happen? There's a king named Melchizedek, which literally means king of righteousness in Hebrew. Is that the guy's name? My name is King of Righteousness. So it's like eventually people started to realize, okay, this is a narrative. I'm not saying the narrative doesn't have value. There's truths within it that we should all draw from. I'm not saying that at all. But eventually, now most critical scholars, not every scholar, but most critical scholars will say, yeah, either he existed and this is all kind of just legend, or maybe he's right and didn't exist at all.
People were not open to Younger Dryas impact hypothesis for a long time. I think just maybe as
I don't think they are today.
No, they're not today. Yeah. So I mean, I think that's kind of what you're saying. Maybe that's an example of just.
I was hoping that. Are you having trouble pulling that one up, Ryan? Or can it's the Folsom tradition page because it's got it quoted right in the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah, this guy. People are getting more open to it. I think as time goes on, but it's taken a long time.
From my understanding from the people that are pro some sort of event say that if it did happen, it would have landed on a glacier, and that's why we can't find the comet or the crater, because the glacier would have melted.
I think if we just start with some type of cataclysm that we haven't been able to define yet as like a possibility, as opposed to let's find the comet, then we can begin to open up to some of the evidence that exists for it, including the temperature changes and the ocean change, the ocean sea level changes and the extinctions, and potentially the Carolina Bays, even, maybe. But
are you saying it's before the older Dryas period or before the younger Dryas? Because then it's like, then what about the older Dryas?
I'm not. I think we keep it super high level to say, is it possible that it was
two?
Or
Twice?
two, or just one long event, one thing that triggered something a couple of thousand years later, that caused something else to happen, maybe an ocean stream to collapse or something that really changed the climate and melted glaciers or whatever, or so.
I mean, it could even be, in my mind, like a metaphor is just because I ran over a nail to pop my tire one time doesn't mean they can't run out of air on its own. Things happen from different.
Sure.
Can you scroll down just a hair, Ryan? Down a little bit further. Great, up a little bit at the bottom of that. Okay. In early 1900, Ailes Hydricla and William Henry Holmes of the Smithsonian Institute became the chief. It made it virtually taboo for any archaeologist desirous of a successful career to advocate for a deep antiquity of the inhabitants of the Americas. This is the same son of a bitch, by the way, that rubbed away. Oh, that 6.6 foot 7 inch skull. Oh, that guy does not use a tape measure. This is the same guy for the Smithsonian that washed away all the giant bones. So it is there. This is a tradition, and this is something that we see in certain fields, just like certain sports teams have. This guy's got a better pitching staff. This guy's got a better catching staff. These guys are kind of underhanded sons of bitches. Archaeology's got a problem, and the problem is that they use some science and then they do historian work, which even Dave Miano knows better than to call himself a damn scientist. But archaeologists are like, oh, this is a scientific hypothesis. Yeah, that was a cheap shot. Take that.
That was a stab.
But it's the truth, though. I mean, if one thing to say, oh, the stratigraphy and the carbon dating, it's another thing altogether to build a network, a framework, and then use the framework to beat other ideas off the table, especially when we know that history's shown that they're often wrong. And real quickly, before I'm done, important part of this is I don't think this is some top-down conspiracy. I think you've got a bunch of people like Ailes who had his ego invested in it. You've got somebody who's wrote 25 Clovis First papers is going to have one hell of a time admitting that his entire life's work was pissing up a rope. But that's exactly what the guy that tells him Clovis First is wrong is telling him. All your last 25 years, all you did was prove what's wrong. Have a nice day. So yeah, they're going to face pushback. They're going to face, especially when the guys get old and long in the tooth and they're looking back in fondness at their history.
This is a great discussion, but I think we move on from it now. I think you guys have both made great points on this, and it's both of you guys have very valid points. And it's a super interesting thing, and I agree. There's a lot of ego involved with keeping these things going, but and I do agree at the same time that there's a lot of open-minded people that are searching for truth and that are willing to overturn and want to overturn the current.
And just one last thought. It's about the historical method, which is based on the scientific method. I mean, there's only the historical method. It's a lot of times you can't do testing. You can test. There is a way to test hypotheses. For example, if you find a city that was wiped out at a certain time from like a volcano, like Pompeii, for example, you have a time capsule now. So then there's a post. What's it called? There's a period where and anything after that is not going to influence before this. So you can test. You can say what culture was like before this period and what culture was like after that period, and you have something to test it off of. Same, I talked about Elephantine, where the Judeans were living in Elephantine, and they were there from 586 to 410. Time capsule. So you can there's things it's literally just like going from the known to the unknown is what they call it. We know certain things we know that we can point to and say we start here, and that's how we test out our hypotheses. That's basically it.
Yeah, cool. Let's move on to the dates of some of the structures around the world. We're going to debate the date of the pyramids maybe first, and just the kind of the construction of the pyramids in general. So, Neal, I think you were going to kind of open this one up and talk about it a bit, and then Dan, I kind of like Neal, kind of like you did earlier when Dan was talking. If you have quick questions of clarity or quick points, feel free to just jump in
anytime
and interrupt.
Okay, so this whole thing started off with you and I had a back and forth. Well, I made a post saying, if I was a complete amateur and not an expert, and I'm trying to understand a field, and I didn't understand it, it didn't make sense to me, and I went out and asked, here it is, right here. How the pyramids were built is a subject that most people justifiably don't fully grasp. Even myself, even right now, I'm not an expert. I'm not an Egyptologist. So
they don't know either.
Yeah. So you ask a few experts in Egyptology, archaeology, anthropology, historians. These are all different fields, right? You're going to get 5 different answers from 5. A lot of people didn't understand what I meant, but I saw some of the comments were like, so that makes it even worse that you're getting 5 different answers. That's not what I'm saying. There are 5 different answers from 5 different expertise that know 5 different. They're specialized in 5 different things, and what you're doing is you're trying to draw from all of them to get a clearer picture. And you might not have a clear picture after just asking 5 people. So what you do, you conclude that they and every expert in the world on this subject is for the past 200, 300 years, which is roughly how much we've been really like scholarship has been, mostly the 100 years, but even 200, even going back to the medieval period, you had scholars, you had historians. But then would you go out and look for the most satisfying conclusion for some random amateur that makes sense to you? I think, I'm speaking a little, I'm using some, I'm being a dick saying normal brains here, but I think people should conclude that, hey, I don't understand this subject because I didn't study it my whole life, so I need to keep reading. I need to keep asking keep reading more literature on this subject, and continue to find out more about this subject, and not just conclude because I don't understand what they're saying that they're wrong. So that's what started this off. And then I think what happened was, you suggested we should have a debate, and then I said, you asked me what I thought about the pyramids. I said I think I actually agree with the consensus. I think the pyramids were built in the 3rd millennium BCE. They were built by the dynasty of Khufu, Khafre, and the sons, and what else did I say? Yeah, I basically said I agree with the consensus, is what I said. And then you're like, all right, let's have a debate. So I figured I'd present to you my understanding with the slides that I brought of this, of what convinces me that this is why I'm convinced that scholars are right about the pyramids. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing. We can't even see it, but people can pause and look at this. That's why I put that on there. I'm not reading this. The point of this is this, that most of the pyramids are objectively tombs. And I've heard people say this. I heard, what's his name? AJ Gentile say, we've never found a mummy inside of a pyramid. That's just false. A whole plethora of these pyramids, if you pause and look, had mummies. Some of them were later added and the old body was taken out. But the funniest part about this is what really drives me crazy is the hieroglyph for tomb is a pyramid. The word tomb in Egyptian hieroglyphs is literally a pyramid, mer. So like even the Egyptians know tombs to be pyramids. Most of the pyramids are tombs. Occam's razor says if most of the pyramids are tombs, the pyramids that were in question are most likely tombs. All right, keep going. Another big reason is the primary sources.
Do you think that the 3 big pyramids are tombs?
I don't think the 3 big pyramids are tombs. In fact, when you talk about them finding bodies in tombs, they find bodies in mud brick, knocked down pieces of crap. None of the big boys have ever had bodies pulled out. None of the anomalous ones. There's a big distinct line there between like the real pyramids and the Bass Pro Shops that came afterwards. And it's a great, I mean, if we come to the States, I go around and say, well, all these obelisks are always associated with all these funeral structures and stuff. You see one at LeGrant's tomb, you see one at Lincoln's tomb, you see one at the Washington Monument. I guess the obelisks are a burial site, but that's not what they were used for. This is cultural difference. I mean, you got to remember, Egypt was around for a long fucking time.
Right.
So anyway, carry on.
You're comparing bells to Bass Pro. Is what you're doing, right?
Well, you got pyramids?
I'm glad you brought that up because we have primary sources even in the pyramids. We have the inscriptions. This is from the quarry inscription where it literally says the worker gang of Khufu. Mm-hmm. And that's so like that's right there. We have Khufu's name on the blocks that are on the pyramid. Go to the next one.
Any comments on that? I want to keep it interactive.
Well, real quickly, that's
jumping in.
That's the same. That's Howard Weiss's team that found that. That's Howard Weiss's team. That's been disregarded by many of the alternate historians. Howard Weiss's team's also found the iron plate in the Great Pyramid, which is basically discounted by most of the mainstream. Oh, there's no way, because it's not meteoric iron. This is smelted iron. And they found that in the Great Pyramid. So it's one of the funniest things about this whole thing is that both sides are like, Howard Weiss's team was just looking for something to encourage their funding.
I don't know.
In my mind, this is a great piece of evidence for the fact that Khufu did have some involvement in the pyramid, and
Okay.
even Graham Hancock. I don't know if you're aware of this, but all the way back in 1996, in Message of the Sphinx, he said that there's no question that Khufu had his hands in building the Great Pyramid, and that was.
I'm glad.
I mean, well,
that's pretty obvious.
Well, but here's the thing: that's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm probably the first time you've heard somebody say that. This is the kind of bullshit that we face because it's like they flat out lie about the man. Oh, he said this in one book, so we'll just conflate. And it's 30 years ago. He said this. 30 years later, I'm telling you this, and you've been in this community for a while. My point is, there's a lot of disinformation from the guys that claim to stand for truth. Have no problem lying about people in order to get where they're going, which is a little segue, but it is important because it taints how things are viewed. You keep invoking ancient high tech as far as a thing, and it's like, I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us aren't. Now, there's some people that are, but if you want to argue with them, I'll sit right next to you and say, no, they didn't have crystal telephone networks back in those days. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I mean, like, as you pointed out, at the very least, he's involved with the pyramid. His name's on it.
Well, at the very least, I mean, this could be fake.
This could be
from Weiss's time
keep
period,
that.
right?
I'm going to show you how it's actually.
It's hard to read.
We in the 18th century, the early Egyptology or whatever, the explorers, I should say, busted open part of the pyramid that was sealed and found. If you keep going, we'll get to it. Let's put a note in that.
Good.
So this is another tomb of the Vizier, who was the architect of the Great Pyramid, and he's the overseer of the construction projects of the king, Khufu. That's found right next to the pyramid.
Now, I want to point out.
Were you done?
No. Or no, yeah.
Oh, I just want to really quickly want to point out. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to interrupt.
Oh, you're good.
No, you're fine.
This is something we're going to see more and more. Every single time you get a worker of Khufu, architect of Khufu, raft carrying blocks for Khufu, they never mention the pyramids. They just say they were workers for Khufu, and that's
not what the Maria Papyrus does, though.
But the Maria Papyrus says that they're bringing the blocks for Khufu.
Yeah, to the pyramids.
It says that they're bringing them to put on the pyramids.
Yeah, it says to the Akhet of Khufu, and it even has the little pyramid tomb. What's the word they use for linguistics? It's signifier. It has a little pyramid.
Yeah, from everything that I've read, it doesn't have it just says that they're bringing limestone blocks
to the pyramids.
They're bringing the limestone blocks to Giza. Is what?
No, that's not what it says. I'll show you. I have the quote right here.
Interesting.
Yeah, keep going. Next one. This is the granddaughter of Khufu. She's also buried. By the way, this is a necropolis, so I don't think this is the whole thing. The cemetery. It's all tombs. So it's like, why would the pyramid be something different? Anyways, that's my own thought. Granddaughter of Khufu, her tomb is right in the same vicinity, and her inscriptions reflect her lineage back to him. And so this is just more. I'm just showing you more context of what's going on here.
Where is her tomb?
It's in this right around. There's a map of it coming up. You'll see. It's right here. So that's all the mastabas. She's in there. See the pyramid of Khufu? She's right in there. She's probably one of the closer ones, but she's in that area.
Okay.
Her number. If you go back to the one before this, see 7530, and I'll go back down. There should be her number should be in there somewhere. So, but anyways, you could look for that. This is the Giza Plateau. This is the mastabas. This is where all the people are buried. The tombs for the elite, they contain slab stelae. Rolls for the overseers of the pyramid city of Khufu is one of the texts. So, and then the other one is a priest. So we actually have the pyramid city of Khufu is one of the texts that's on there. The next one,
So Khufu was claiming it, right? I mean, there's no doubt that whether he built it or not, he was at that point in time, he's claiming this pyramid.
That's undisputable.
Undisputed. Yeah.
And even this next dynasty, the Sixth Dynasty, is saying he built the pyramids. Mm-hmm. So that's at the very least, right then and there, people are saying Khufu beat the pyramid. I had that in here too.
Okay.
So this is the inventory stuff. This is later. This is 26th Dynasty, but I'm showing you. It's a primary source. It says Khufu built this pyramid next to the temple of the goddess Isis, and he built the pyramid for his. Now this is later,
much later,
but I'm just showing you primary sources.
Well, you can't really call that a primary source. But
what else would be?
I mean, if I wrote something down now that says Jesus died on the cross, is that a primary source? I'm less than 2,600 years away.
Well, it's not a primary. It's not a eyewitness account.
Neither is
it's a primary source though.
Is this
because we didn't understand hieroglyphics until after the time of Napoleon. So finding this, you're right. You're very right to point out that it's not a contemporary source. But it's still a primary source.
This could be a comic book of what happened in those days. For all we know,
all right, but it's still the Egyptians. I'm saying the Egyptians themselves all understood this was Khufu's pyramid.
If I go to Italy right now and I start asking them about the building of the Colosseum, what can I expect these people to know? It's fucking thousands of years ago. I mean, no offense.
No, I'm just pointing out primary sources.
That's fair. I have a hard time calling that a primary source.
Is it 1,800 years later? Something like that?
Even later, 26th Dynasty.
It's like over 1,000 at least. Oh yeah, at least. You can find the math on that.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. Next one.
I don't have a phone.
Rock cut. This is the workers. The workers are all buried there. Their bones have been tested. They all have back problems. Mm-hmm. That was one of the interesting things that I found out about this. The tombs of the builders. They served the king of, and that says we served the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, Khufu. Mm-hmm. So the builders are saying we served Khufu. That's one of the inscriptions.
And I think what Graham would say was that and others might say is that they were, that the papyrus that said that they were bringing the limestone in was talking about the casing stones, and there was some repair done for Khufu during the time of the pyramid, which I think I'm just trying to stay open here. I know this is very.
I don't think it's just the casing.
Very compelling.
No, it is. See if I was wrong about the one point, but yeah, it was limestone casing.
But
limestone, yeah.
But they would have Torah limestone. Yeah, they would have been serving Khufu if they were just doing some repairs. Or,
Okay, well,
you know.
that's fine. That's fair. Keep that in mind for when we keep going. I'll give you something for that later. Next one. This is another tomb where it's from the 6th dynasty. I already mentioned this. Now, this gives us a terminus antiquem. Is basically saying nobody after this built it. We all agree on that. I'm just pointing. I just wanted to make sure that's established. It's before the 6th dynasty. 6th dynasty is saying Khufu built it. We all agreed there. I'm not even bringing that up for any point. I'm just for the sake of the conversation.
And how far after is this
is the very next dynasty after.
Yes,
6th dynasty.
Yeah.
about 150 years, I think.
Yeah.
150 years
From the fourth, from the middle of the 4th dynasty.
Yep. It's the next dynasty.
I'm just spitballing, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The next one.
And they said for sure that Khufu built it.
Every single primary source from Egypt says Khufu.
Okay.
There's not one that's one of the major points that I want people to understand, the audience. There's none of the Egyptian sources say anyone else besides Khufu built the pyramids. There's zero.
Okay.
The classical sources too. I mean, this is all way later, but I'm just trying to highlight this has been known forever. Herodotus, Manetho, Diodorus, Strabo. I could go on and on and on. And look, you could, Bam might say they're all just copying the guy before it, going back to the 6th dynasty. Sure, that's a possibility. Maybe they all believe a lie, but I'm just trying to highlight that they all understood that Khufu built the pyramids. In Greek, his name was Cheops. And now that I'm not going to read that. If you could pause it and read it, Herodotus gets a lot wrong about the construction. He thinks there was a huge slave labor task force.
That's one thing I'll quickly point out. The existence of a grave that says workers of Khufu does not mean there's not a grave with a bunch of slaves sitting right next by. There's different levels of people on a construction site. There's the guys that get to eat steak, and there's the guys that are there as prison labor.
The Maria Papyrus reflects that. There's a hierarchy of how well they got fed, how much they got paid.
I'm going to say that I said the same thing to Zahi Was. The omission of slaves doesn't mean that there were no slaves. All that means is they didn't get written down, and that's
possible.
I mean, they don't even mark their graves, right?
Yeah, it's possible.
So anyway, I think we see that a lot with because of the debate. We see a lot of the evidence being stretched to where it's like, we know for certain, well, we got this thing that says that they were working for Khufu, ergo they must have been talking about the pyramid. We see that a lot. And I think that's a byproduct of this very debate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So just trying to highlight that this has been, and the big thing is at the bottom, none say otherwise. There's no one from any sources that I'm aware of that ever say, and I asked a lot of people, is there anyone that thinks anyone else built the pyramids? No. From everyone I asked, all the Egyptologists that I know. Okay, this is the big one, the Maria Papyrus. We already brought it up, but I wanted to. This whole thing is talking about transporting and blocks from the quarry and bringing them to the pyramids. It dates to the exact same time as the reign of Khufu, between 2589 2566 BCE. It says, Inspector Maria spends the day with his file, hauling stones in Tura South, spends the night at Tura South. That's what it says in the Egyptian. This is a translation. Then it says, he cast off with his file from Tura for the pyramid of Khufu, for the Akhet Khufu, spends the night at She Khufu, sets sails towards the Akhet Khufu, the pyramid of Khufu. And by the way, that's the word they use for the pyramids of Khufu in other sources. Akhet Khufu. Cast off the pyramid of Khufu in the morning, goes back to Tura. So this is the smoking gun.
Yeah, we have this is interesting. Again, I'd like to be able to look into this.
They just discovered this in 2013.
Yeah.
So this is new. But this is the smoking gun. And the main thing that people need to take home from this is we've always thought, just think about this. Imagine you're in 2013, and this is the reason why I showed this last. I even showed it after Herodotus, is because our knowledge, our collective knowledge as amateurs and scholars alike, we've always been thinking Khufu, 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 Khufu. And then one day we discover a papyrus that literally says it's Khufu. It just like, to me, it's a smoking gun. And like, unless you think this is a forgery or somehow they faked this whole thing, good luck going with that route, because then I just can't take you seriously at that point. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure someone might have that idea in their head. But anyways, the next smoking gun, in my opinion,
is it inconclusive that this is all what it says?
Yes,
it's completely conclusive.
Again, I'd have to look at that again because I've
Egyptologist agrees on this.
This is something that I mean, even when I brought this up to Zahi Hawass, he admitted that the pyramids weren't in that. So
really,
that's yes.
He's the one who talks about this on Joe Rogan.
He was talking about
this exact.
So
he was talking about this exact papyrus. He said, Joe, we have them. They say it themselves.
Yeah, but he says that about all of it, about how the workers of Khufu were the pyramids. He always and when I pressed him on it, he didn't push on that. So again,
I think he's. I don't think he understands. I think there's a language barrier because you asked him about Zep Tepe and he was like, huh?
Yeah.
Because and it's not. It's actually the other way around. The misconnection was on your part because in Arabic they have a different phrase for it.
I get that, but I will point out that I'm not the guy who's been a science communicator in Arabic for the last 40 years. So
sure.
I
don't blame you. I don't blame you for having that reaction.
Well,
being like,
I mean,
what the hell? People are calling him dumb and saying, "I can't believe this guy's an expert." He just doesn't. He has a different phrase for that word.
I get that, but
so
again,
he didn't know what you meant.
40 years of communicating with us in English about that kind of stuff. You think that he would know what it means? I get what it just implied a bit of a.
But that's what happened there. Anyway,
I get it.
So there might have been some other miscommunication. This is, from what I understand, this is it. This is the smoking gun.
Is this read vertically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Because otherwise, you could never get a
they're logs. They're days. Today, day 25. You can see the numbers on the top, and then the writing going down. So every day you have it's literally a worker, inspector, Merer, that's his name, telling you what he's been doing day by day.
So there's four days listed here. It's probably the longest.
But there's way more. I just gave you a sample.
Okay.
There's way more than that though.
Yep. Yeah, they were definitely doing work. This proves they were definitely doing work.
And they're definitely, at the very least, what you can say about this, it doesn't tell you how they lifted the blocks on the pyramid or how they constructed the pyramid.
Right.
But it tells you that they were bringing blocks from this quarry at Tura to the Giza Plateau.
Yeah, you're saying blocks, but they're saying stones. So blocks is implying that it's the cubes.
They cut the stone, I believe, in the quarry. So they would cut the stone there. And I think there's, I don't have it on here. I think there's a mention of the cutting on here too, but I'm not. But I could be wrong. Let's just maybe just not even bring that up.
Yeah, but that's I could
be wrong. Yeah, I thought I probably would have put it on there. But for the very least, they're bringing. I mean, that's how the quarry. That's what the quarry is for. You cut the stone and then you bring. And another thing about the cutting, we're gonna get to that soon. There's another big. I think people don't understand the. You hear this all about the Mohs scale thing, and we'll get into that. Oh, it doesn't describe cutting the stones?
Yeah.
Doesn't describe stones being cut.
So the diary
I was wrong about that.
The Diary of Merer does not explicitly describe stones being cut in the Great Pyramid.
Okay.
What it does describe is hauling limestone at Tora, loading limestone blocks onto boats. I still don't know that it says blocks anywhere, but it's loading limestone.
That's a fair thing to point out. Maybe we can,
loading limestones onto boats.
But then if you're cutting it from a quarry, it's going to be a block. Where else? What else would you do? Would you cut it off raw and bring it to the?
I guess we don't necessarily know it's the middle blocks of the Great Pyramid. Like, could it be that we're coming from Tora? Could this be the casing stones, the Tora limestone casing stones? Is my question.
That's a good question.
Yeah,
I'm not going to sit there and pretend I have the answer to that right now.
Yeah, and I think that's what I hear from some of the alternative thinking guys, that they're just talking about the casing stones here coming from Tora.
There's a problem with that coming up next. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So if you're done with that one, the carbon dating, this is the big one. This gives us a terminus post quem, in my opinion. You can't go farther than this now. So we can't go after the 6th dynasty claiming that we can't go, in my opinion, the carbon dating says we cannot go back to 10,000 BC because the organic material is in the mortar. And the mortar goes all the way down to the beginning, the bottom layers of the pyramid, in the core of the pyramid. And that mortar carbon dates to exactly the reign of Khufu.
No, it does not.
Yes, it does.
It correlates. It goes 230 years.
Only the wood.
No,
not the mortar. The mortar is. That's right. I have the period. There's 10 academics right there. 10 professors, peer-reviewed paper right there. That's what I'm citing. All of them say that it goes exactly to the reign of Khufu.
They're using Bayesian modeling to eliminate the dates that don't correlate.
No, they don't. That's only
Pull up
for the
paper,
wood.
man.
It's only for the wood. I know what you're
do you-
thinking
then what
about.
do you think that? What do you think that they pulled out of the mortar that was organic? Wood.
The wood.
That's
But
what we're talking about.
The
So
wood is either reused
Okay.
because the other
they didn't
part,
do that in the first, second, and
it's
third
only
dynasty.
it's
They
only the wood that has a different dating problem with like 100 to 200 years later. Now, the only problem, there's a reason why I have terminus post quem there is because even if you wanted to say, oh, but the wood goes back another 100 to 200 years, you still have to deal with the other mortar that dates to this period.
no other mortar
That's what it is.
It's wood. It's wood ash that they pull out of the mortar. It's wood ash and seed particles that they pulled out of the mortar. It's all
That's
250 to 300 years older when they did the Bayesian modeling in order to make that go away.
That's what I'm saying. You have two options here. Either they use reused wood, or the dating was off, which is what this paper's saying.
No, but hang on. Now, what you got here is the carbon dating and the written record align in the first dynasty. The carbon dating and the written record align in the second dynasty. They align in the third up until the end, and then they veer off and they go off about 300 years and they go back together.
That's not what happened.
That's exactly
No,
what happened.
I'm telling you right now. That's
exactly what happened.
You're saying that all the carbon dating is older than the pyramid. That's not true.
Hang on. I'm saying that the carbon dating, when they did all of the math and stuff in the old days, until they brought in Bayesian modeling, the carbon dating showed a 250 to 300 year older date.
Yeah,
when they brought
for
in
the
Bayesian
wood.
modeling and the way that they did the Bayesian modeling, I go through it in detail. They eliminated any date that didn't correspond with the known king, and they favored earlier dates than the later dates.
Brian, can you get me some popcorn?
That's not right.
That's exactly what. Yeah, that's
well,
exactly.
Dan,
I've
no
gone-
offense, Dan, but why would I not? If I have 20 Egyptologists, archaeologists, anthropologists telling me that the carbon dating is spot on,
I pull the
and
paper up and
you're
let's
telling
read
me
it.
the opposite. Why would I go? Oh,
Okay,
Dan's figured it out.
Hey, could you pull up the Bayesian modeling and the carbon dating of the fourth dynasty? There's a damn paper about it. It goes into detail, and it's what this is. You can pull this one up, even it's going to cite it anytime that.
Yeah, this one right here, who has 10 PhDs names
It
on
doesn't matter. I don't give a shit.
I'm just saying,
I can do
this is the
math.
consensus, though.
I can do math, and they'd use Bayesian. Okay, let's put it this way. Say, for instance, we had 5 quarters on the table, and we said that any of these that get flipped and come up tails belongs to Dan, and any that get flipped and comes up heads belongs to Neal. However, we're going to reflip all the ones that come up
That's
heads.
not what happened.
That's exactly. We're going to determine when this was built. Was it 10 years old or was it 50 years old? We're going to favor dates closer to 10.
Let's say
That's exactly what they did.
okay.
And-
So you think the pyramids are 200 years older than
No,
Khufu? Then that's all. That's the only other option you have if you're going to go with that. It's just 200 years older.
The carbon dating's off by 200 years, which
Right.
I can tell you why I think it is. It's real easy. Why did Snefer need 3 pyramids? Because he was over there deleting the dynasty. He was claiming other people's work. You can erase King Tut from history by knocking a face off of a wall. You can't erase a ruler that built a step pyramid that's that freaking big without claiming their pyramid. And in my opinion, that's why we have this couple 100-year disparities, because right when the cool shit started happening is when something went down that got erased from the history. Sneferu was the one that picked up the claim, and that's why the carbon datings. Again, if you look at the carbon dating and the written records of ancient Egypt, they align, they disalign in the anomalous pyramid, and they go right back together. So when they're massaging that carbon dating away, they're pushing away a data bubble. Anybody
But that
watching
doesn't make
can
any
look this
sense.
up.
So
it doesn't make sense.
According
from
to the carbon
scientific
dating, then when do you think the pyramids were built?
Well, according to the carbon dating, I think the Great Pyramid was a couple 100 years older than what it's said to have been. Yeah, I mean that's even the
So
wood-
that's if for the sake of argument, which I think you're wrong, and
Okay.
everyone I've talked to has been pretty solid on that. But let's just for the sake of argument say the carbon dating is
Bayesian
200 years
statistical
older.
framework. Sorry,
You're saying
I
that
knew
there
that
was they built these pyramids 200 years before Khufu, and then all these workers start showing up 200 years later claiming to build these pyramids, and there's graffiti and inscriptions saying Khufu built this pyramid, but really they're just all lying. It's 200 years older.
No, I'm saying that the timeline is
And it
off.
still doesn't bring you back to 10,000 BC.
I'm not trying to get back to
I know, but I'm
10,000
saying
BC.
the people watching might be thinking,
well,
"Oh, Dan's going to debunk it, so then we can go back to our Göbekli Tepe theory." But what you're saying, it's still you're
well, it
still in the
doesn't get
same
rid of the
vicinity.
idea that the place was a sacred site 20,000 years ago, even. But the building of
Whatever.
the pyramids themselves,
Might have
well, I
been.
mean, well, there's evidence for that too. But I mean, this is what we're talking about right here. This is Bayesian modeling, is what they used.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well,
That's how you date things.
Oh no, it's not how you date things. It's how you massage away disparities.
No,
in
it's
data.
how you account for. It's how you account for data that's been mishandled.
Yeah.
Or that's how
No,
Bayesian is how you date things.
Bayesian modeling can be used when you don't have a debate. Bayesian modeling is great. When you have a debate using Bayesian modeling
No.
to solve it, no, hang on. Again, we'll look at it this way. You've got they flat say in the paper they favor the younger dates. I don't fucking know how much more blatant they can be that we favor the younger dates. Oh, look at that. We found a younger date. Duh. I mean,
Let's read the abstract.
Go
Let's read
ahead.
the abstract. The unrivaled millennia-long historical chronology of ancient Egypt forms the backbone of archaeological synchronization across the entire eastern Mediterranean region, 3000 and 1000 BCE. However, for more than a century, scholars have wrangled over the correct calendrical positioning of this record, with older scenarios being referred to as high and younger ones, low chronologies. Offsets between the two can be as great as a century. So we're century, a little 2 centuries, I guess some people say. Substantially confusing connections with other civilizations of the time. Here we settle this debate with two major periods of political unity in ancient Egypt: the Old Kingdom, the Pyramid Age, and the Middle Kingdom. We introduced 48 high-precision radiocarbon dates obtained through rare access to museum collections, as well as freshly excavated samples. By combining these new results with legacy radiocarbon data and with text records for the reign and lengths of the kings with a Bayesian statistical framework, we show that the low chronology is no longer empirically supported for the old. So this, I mean, you're just saying I disagree with it.
No. If you scroll down to the methodology, they'll explain how they. Again, it's the way that Bayesian is used. It's the way that the Bayesian modeling is used.
And I'm trying to say, like, if I granted you that this was all biased, we need to fix this somehow.
Well,
we need to go back to our
but
forget about the evidence. We need to have our narrative. If that's the case, then you're still only bringing back the pyramids 100 years or so.
Okay, but here's the thing. Look at the opposition that I'm facing to that right now. Look at the opposition. You know who paid for those samples that they got from the Giza Plateau? The Edgar Cayce Foundation and David Koch. Both of these guys were looking for 10,000-year-old dates.
Yeah.
They get dates that are just a couple hundred years off. Science freaks the fuck out, and 15 years later, they're massaging the data away. That's exact. They say at the beginning of this paper, we got a problem with this. It's troubled us for a long time, but
Yeah,
now
because it doesn't make sense. Because all of the evidence is saying Khufu, Khufu, and then you test the wood and it comes back a little bit older.
Yeah.
Not a lot older,
Okay.
not thousands of years, 100 years,
and
which means that it's either reused. I think I actually think the convincing thing to me is, before I even read this paper, people were saying they're reusing old wood. It's recycled wood.
Why don't we see that
That's
in
why
the
it's 100
7th
years
dynasty?
older.
Why don't we see
use
that?
recycled wood?
Why
right?
don't we see that in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 15th, 16th, 26th dynasty? We only see it in the anomalous. And again,
that's like saying, why aren't we building things the same way as people in the 1600s?
At the very beginning of
400 years is a long time.
At the very beginning of dynastic Egyptian times, we have an alignment with the radiocarbon data. It's just when they start these crazy building projects, and hang on, the first guy that starts these crazy building projects builds 3 times more than anybody else.
Which is why he probably uses old wood.
This is the one time in history we have massive amounts of records of them importing cedars from Lebanon. There was no shortage of wood in Egypt at this time. No shortage at all. The fact of the matter is, we have a 150 to 250.
Not when you're making mortar, though. That would make sense to make mortar with older wood.
150 to 250 year disparity.
Not for boats.
We have it in this one specific time. This one specific time frame when everything's happy. We have a pyramid. We have a ruler that built 3 pyramids instead of 1. I posit, this isn't a crazy idea. What I'm saying here isn't some Graham Hancock. I'm not saying there's a face on Mars. I'm saying, what if they did what we know the Egyptians did and erased a dynasty? That's not crazy. But that's
What, I would ask what the evidence is other than
besides the 250 years difference in carbon dating and the three
it's 100.
and the three pyramids.
100 to
No,
200.
you look at the samples and the three pyramids attributed to the first big builder in Egyptian history. To me, that like clearly.
And there's just no evidence besides that, besides the carbon dating.
Besides the carbon dating that's again off everywhere
They just
only in these
erased
times.
all the physical evidence except for the mortar.
Why did we find King Tut's tomb? Maybe because they erased all the physical evidence of King Tut. And so we stumbled across it years later. They deleted the dynasty. And so if they if they deleted the dynasty.
They didn't delete the dynasty.
Yes, they did. They
They
deleted
damned him. They considered him
He was
evil.
erased from the history books.
He was they crossed his name off and on the, but you still see the cross name off.
And you go back in
You
the
still
old
see it,
you
though.
go
You
back
still
in-
have evidence for it.
And we have a 250-year disparity, and we have three pyramids. Again, nobody can explain why Sneferu built three pyramids, but
I don't know why.
but I think the idea that he was stealing a dynasty or two makes a lot of sense. My point here is that everything. This is the one place where you push back on anything against that timeline in
I
ancient
actually don't blame you
Egypt.
for pushing back on this. You're seeing a problem with this, but I'm telling you, even if I granted you're right, you have two options. Either it's reused wood, which makes a lot of sense, or the pyramids are a little bit older than we thought,
Yeah.
but we're still not talking thousands of years.
But that does
we're still in the Old Kingdom.
We're still in the Old Kingdom, but we got a problem with the Old Kingdom, and we're not even addressing.
That's a whole nother.
No,
no. I'm saying that's a whole.
This is see now to me that's like I'm getting put in the same camp as.
I'm not saying anything about that.
I'd have to.
I'm actually what you're saying is probably more rational than what most pseudo.
And yet, look at the opposition
you're at least admitting that it's in the Old Kingdom.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of. I mean, again, Graham Hancock admitted it in '96, so it's not like. I mean, you're kicking. That's.
Do you understand what we're kind of getting at right here?
Yeah, it's a great conversation.
Yeah, because you're saying if they're wrong and they're massaging the data, then the pyramids are a couple hundred years older, and it's like. I hope the audience realizes that you and I, looking at the evidence, our post whatever it's called.
Is in alignment with Graham Hancock and Zahi Hawass. Yeah,
I thought Graham Hancock says that they're from 10,000 BC.
Graham has gone back and forth on it.
Yeah.
I think
he said they were built, and then he said they were built in the Fourth Dynasty. He said the groundwork was done.
So
the
your
layout
terminus, your terminus post
But I think
quem
he's
is
changed
only
his mind, period, from time to
your
time.
terminus post quem is 2300 BC. Is that what you're saying?
I would say that it's potentially even further back than that. We don't because we don't know. If you can access the mortar, a worker can repair that part of the pyramid. So there's so much fuckery that's gone on in that part of the world for so long that it is difficult for them to say what has and hasn't been done.
But I thought Khufu's people were the ones who are fixing or repairing. So shouldn't it be shouldn't the mortar be going to their time?
In the neck of the woods. Again, I'm talking about a deleted dynasty and a couple hundred years off.
But you just said, though, if they're doing repairs, that would explain why we're in the Old Kingdom.
Okay,
and didn't you just admit that it's Khufu's people?
Hang on.
Okay.
If there's a writing that says this belongs to Khufu,
Yeah.
and the writing is on a piece of paper that's 250 years older than it should be, for argument's sake, and it was written by Khufu, maybe Khufu lived 250 years older than the written records imply. This is why I have a problem. The written records with ancient Egypt are considered like holy grail levels of. This is why they tested carbon dating to begin with in Egypt, because they believed that those written records were so robust.
Well,
so you can't kick the tires on them.
They corroborate with each other, so that's why
they kind of sort of do.
You have to ignore all of the other evidence to get to what you're getting at. I'm saying if we take a holistic approach here, this all makes sense to me, and that's all. It might
all make sense to you, but let me go right back to where you started this with. You criticized me for cherry picking and choosing scientists that do and don't make sense with me. I show you the Lascaux caves and the Taurus, and you're like, I don't really like that. But you don't know much about archaeoastronomy. No offense, but I'm well aware you don't know a lot about it. But so that scientist you pick at but
they literally added dots. They literally added dots to the screen.
Well, on that in that little overlap there, but she's done a lot of work again.
Sure, I'm sure she did.
But there's My point here is we all cherry pick. We all get to pick and choose what experts we agree with. We all get to do that.
Yeah.
But you pointed your finger at me and said that that's bad. You shouldn't be doing it like that. It's like, dude, this is what.
Well,
this is exactly what you're doing right now.
I would say the responsible thing to do if you're not an expert is to I'm not saying you have to obey the consensus. But if you're me, not an expert, I don't know how to do carbon dating. I don't know how to do Bayesian.
I do. I learned how to do Bayesian modeling when I saw
know
that
how to
paper.
I know how Bayesian works. I'm not sure what their.
I didn't know how to do it 2 months ago.
I don't know what their model is. I don't know what I don't know what variables they're using. And I trust that 10 PhDs putting their name on this. I'm just saying. I think the responsible thing to do if you're not an expert is to appeal to people who are experts.
In my mind,
when
our
family members have cancer, we go to the best doctors out there.
Yeah, absolutely. But when you're talking about somebody who's dying or whatnot, you've got kind of a one-off shot. If you're going to weigh in on these things, in my opinion, if you're going to do it responsibly, leaning on the experts is you may as well not even say anything. And if you're going to do it responsibly, in my mind, you look into it. I don't know how Bayesian modeling works. I learned how Bayesian modeling works.
You know who's a good example of someone who, because I want to make this, I'm not saying you should never disagree or have some disagreement or have your own opinions. Oh my God. I was just told yesterday, I'm not going to say the scholar's name. I was talking to him and he said, you're kind of like Dan too. Like I call out scholars all the time. I made a whole video on Dan McClellan, a biblical scholar, total mainstream scholar. I did a whole video debunking him, and people were pissed about that. They were uncomfortable with it. They're like, "Why'd you go after him? He's a good guy." And I was like, "I think he's wrong about X, Y, and Z." I'd be a hypocrite to say you should never disagree, but I think it's about knowing the data. And right here, you're actually agreeing with the data, and you're disagreeing with the conclusion. I don't have no problem with that. And a prime example is History for Granted. History for Granted, he disagrees with the consensus on a lot of things. He even gets a little nasty sometimes with mainstream scholars. But I can sit there and watch his videos, and I can tell that he's done his work and he knows the data. He's not lying about the data. Where you get people who just literally just lie about the data. For example, Jay Anderson is literally just saying they can't cut stone with copper because of the Mohs scale. Well, he's either doesn't understand the data or he's lying, because they could cut granite using arsenic copper with sand that has quartz in it. Quartz is a higher on the Mohs scale than granite, and we know they can do this because it's been done before. So what I'm saying, there's a difference between not knowing the data and just saying things, and then knowing the data and being, I disagree with it. And I'm saying you're doing it right now, and what you're doing is fine.
Well, thanks. So, you love
Jay Anderson, right? I mean, it's like a 10 out of 10 for you.
I think he's one of the most Dunning-Kruger people I've ever seen in my entire life.
To play a quick devil's advocate.
Can we pause for a
second?
second?
Of course. I'm sorry.
Nice guy.
Let me see. So this has been an amazing conversation on the pyramid. I just want to pause and make sure that in terms of time, because there's a number of other sites that I want you guys to weigh in on. So, I mean, in terms of
speed through these then.
Like this, is this additional proof on the pyramid?
Yeah, these are all super big, dude.
Okay,
so let me speed through this. And look, let's just say I understand your beef with the carbon dating. I get it. Okay. At least we understand. We're both on the same page about what the data says. We disagree on our conclusions. I have no problem with that. All right, we can keep going.
Okay.
So this is just examples of them using copper tube saws, and they use arsenic bronze. And I just mentioned, actually, this is a perfect segue. The granite and the limestone is not cut with the copper. It's the sand that cuts it. The sand has quartz in it.
So when people say that when people say copper saws don't cut the rock, they're actually speaking accurately, right?
Well, no. Well, the copper is copper is part of the process.
The copper is just holding the sand. The copper
no. Because the copper, if you make arsenic bronze using arsenic, it's self-hardening, so it doesn't actually bend and get all. You can keep using it all the way through. So people keep saying, "Oh, you would need so much copper to do it." You actually don't. I'm just saying the arsenic bronze with quartz is ample. Is perfect for cutting granite with.
Good.
All right, next one.
Check.
We have actual depictions of them loading heavy, and this just looks like This is just a big boat. I'm just showing like next one.
But what time period
That's
is that?
from I don't know exactly what
Yeah,
time
they
period.
poured water to move statues. Yeah.
This one's showing them covering or dragging gigantic
that
statues.
statue
I mean,
is
look
like
how many people they
tiny
have.
compared to what the big stuff is over there. But yeah,
Look at the size of the person next to the statue. That's huge.
That's still small.
It's a big statue, but there's a lot bigger statues.
Oh,
And so the question
that's-
is, like, can
Well,
if,
they call
if that's like 100 tons, I mean, there's 1,000-ton statues that they're pulling.
okay.
And is that
that
doable?
the Romans carried 500-ton obelisk from Aswan all the way to Rome.
yeah,
they rolled it.
400, I think. but
Rolled
yeah.
it.
500.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, whatever. But yeah, this is showing how they did it, which is incredible
Yeah.
to think
I'm just
about.
showing. I'm just
Obelisks are easy though. You just put it
Sure.
you put it in a tube and you roll it.
Yeah, no, I'm just showing you that there's example. We can see them showing us that they know how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
You don't need like.
Oh yeah. Oh, there was certain. I mean, I don't think there's any question the ancient Egyptians knew how to move rocks and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just there's a certain point where it becomes the scale plus the timeline. I mean,
I just think you just need more people.
20 to 30 year timeline gets. I mean, it's,
But
it's-
the wood at some point on 1,000 tons, like the wood sled idea, does that hold up throughout?
It's
all,
been demonstrated before. From
like
my,
all
my
terrain because they're
understanding.
going like up and down.
No,
mountains over rivers.
The
and
water.
shit.
If you keep going, I show the water was right up to the pyramid. You know this. The Nile was right up to the pyramids at the time when this was built.
yeah.
Yeah,
so
but
they only had to go from the quarry down the water and then just a couple up a ramp and they were there.
I think we're talking about two different statues, but let's keep
Okay,
moving.
I'm talking about the blocks of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going. Let's speed through this. That's just me showing how there was it's an example of how this was cut. They had rocks to weigh it down. There's another one that's the tube saw.
Yeah.
Keep going, and this is what a gigantic 4th dynasty drag saw, huge, and it had the mechanisms to keep it straight. And you would have 3 people on each side, and you see the guy pouring the sand with the quartz in it.
Where's this glyph? Is this a glyph? Or
This is out of a textbook.
Yeah,
text-
This is an
this is
artistic
showing you.
represent-
This is based on what we've recovered and how we know. Like we've recovered.
This is a hypothesis.
Yeah, but they've recovered actual. They've recovered these.
They've recovered. There's a hieroglyph. There is one hieroglyph that shows a drag saw. It's got one guy on each side. It's got one dude in the middle pouring water. It's considerably smaller than this.
But they've recovered those mechanisms that hold the saw.
Well, that's this is again with the they extrapolate from there. This a pulley doesn't mean that it was part of this. We got to. I've got a tire. It could have been.
If we can wrap our heads around this, then why would we have to think about technology of power saws when we can sit there and go, this could
Yeah,
be.
that's fair. I mean,
know what I mean?
you still have issues like you have to wonder how long a foreman would walk off site in order to get the offcuts, like you see in the Siriprium or whatever the hell the one coffin lid that's just all goofy wonky you always
Yeah.
see. I mean, that guy would have had to have gone and nailed a couple of whores or something in order to come back and have that much of an offcut because they killed him for it, right? I mean, seriously, the foreman of that job lost his life for that.
Probably, yeah.
110%, and it probably wasn't quick.
Yeah.
So when you see things like that, I mean, it is worth mentioning that it is this was hours of an offcut. According to this method, it probably would have took half a day in order to make
and
that
I
offcut.
think they would have stations of this going on, not just one at a time.
So that
there
offcut
is somebody.
does become
There is a
interesting.
few scholars who think that they added emery that they would have traded with the Greeks, the Mycenaeans, which is an emerald almost as strong as diamond,
Yeah, would have been.
mixing it with the sand that has quartz in it, which would make it cut faster.
But no, this is where I want to point out we have no evidence for this emery.
Petrie, Flinders Petrie said he in one of his writings says he saw there was like remnants of green rock on one of the copper saws.
This is what
That's
we're off.
Sure,
in
sure,
he
sure.
said,
Sure,
she said
sure.
kind of land.
Sure.
We don't.
You're right. Okay,
yeah.
fair enough. Let's go to the next one. That might not be true. This is a list of I hear this all the time from people saying these scholars, they don't know anything about architecture or engineering. They don't know anything about construction. Well, that's actually false. This is a list of people who either have dual PhDs or dual master's degrees in architecture or engineering and Egyptology. From all these people have contributed to Egyptology for over 200 years at least now, going back to the 1800s up until today. Some of them are still living. You see Arthur Callender's still alive, still writing, still teaching. Go to the next page. There's even more. I just wanted to put together a list. There's probably way more than this. This is all I could find in a short period of time. These are people with either dual masters, dual PhDs who study engineering, architecture, and Egyptology. So the idea that these are people, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know anything about construction. That's not true. They do. So
I would point out that if you go through these names, you're probably going to find very few of these guys that are on that 20-year timeline thing, and that's one of the biggest problems. You'll see that from 20 to 30-year construction of that date. The timeline of the pyramid is, I mean, that's half the problem with the carbon dating right there, because it's absurd. I mean, in all honesty,
you're saying these people don't agree with the 20-year thing?
I would say
think
you'd
so.
have to go through there with the fine-tooth comb, but most of these guys are basically unknowns.
No, these are mainstream scholars. These are mainstream.
Most of these guys are basically unknowns. They're not people that their names come up when you
Look
read
on
about
the
this
right.
stuff all the
It
time.
tells you what they're known for.
Again,
What the books they wrote, what they've done.
yeah,
These are not unknowns.
no, basically unknowns. They're not the famous ones. They're not people that you see.
I know. I've heard of Earl Baldwin Smith before.
Yes,
I know
I've
that
heard
is.
some of these people
and Frank
before too.
Frank Monier
Again,
is one of the
I'd have
big
to
ones
go
from
through
today.
them with a fine-tooth comb, but I would almost guarantee you that the closer they are into to construction, the less likely they are going to be on a 20-year timeline.
I disagree.
Yeah.
Frank Monier, as the editor of the Ancient Egyptian Architectural Journal.
Okay.
I'm just saying these people are like right in there with architecture, construction, and that's a myth that Egyptologists don't know how to do construction.
That's when you start having conversations with people and you ask them how they built things.
Yeah.
And the answers you get don't come from these people. The answers you get,
Yes, they do.
The answers that I've gotten, well, as somebody who's been in that arena for 3 years now, I can guarantee you the
They
answers.
cite
I've
these
never.
people.
No, they always just
they
come
do.
at me and they tell me some crazy bullshit.
No.
Yeah. By and large,
They cite these people right here. I'm telling you.
the only one that they cite that I've seen in the last few years has been that French dude that talks about the exterior ramp theory, Jean
Yes.
what's his face.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? I'm sorry. What are your thoughts on like the how it was built? And maybe we close off with the how and your question.
How many slides are left? Just want to make sure I'm almost done. I think.
How many slides left, Ron?
You're at 19 of 31.
Oh shit. Okay.
Lord. Yeah, that's probably or
Can we just speed through? I just want to look at them and I'll stop if one's super important.
all right.
Keep going. Oh yeah, that one. This is huge. The sarcophagus. People say it's not a tomb. How can it not be a tomb when it was built around the sarcophagus? You could not get the sarcophagus in there. Petrie said himself, the coffer could not have been put into the pyramid after the king's chamber was finished because it's wider than the beginning of the ascending passage. The only conclusion then is that the coffer was placed in the king's chamber before the roof was put on. So this has to be, you can disagree on if it's a coffin or not, but you have to at least agree that the coffin was there first.
Yeah.
It was built around the coffin.
Yeah.
Yeah, but why does that make it a coffin?
Because all the other coffins look exactly the same as this.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do. They look identical. Yes, they're identical to this.
They're similar. They are similar.
I could find ones that are identical to this.
I'm sure you can find some that are
I
identical.
was there myself. I could fit perfectly inside there if I wanted
This
to.
doesn't make it a coffin.
What else would it be?
I don't know, but I'm just but
If they're
your
all
point is
coffins.
that it's too big to get in there, but that doesn't make it a coffin.
No, but if they're building around it, means that was there first. And if all the other coffins from that dynasty, the dynasty prior and the dynasty after, have identical
I'm not
coffins.
saying it wasn't a coffin.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it wasn't a coffin. I'm just saying that because it couldn't fit through the door doesn't make it a coffin. That's all.
Well, I'm saying you have whatever you want to say it is. You can't say that was added later. It has to be first. Okay,
100%.
All right,
100%.
keep going.
Yeah,
I think there's a
but
couple
that doesn't
more.
make it a coffin.
They worked around the coffin, so they started with that. But like I said, that's the evidence of the ramp at Saqqara.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pyramid that was unfinished with a ramp leading up to it, so we know they use ramps. The next one is another papyri or an ostraca showing the calculations they made for the ramp.
Mm-hmm.
That's a calculation. Let's see, keep going. Metallurgy evidence, that's not that important. That's showing how the water was right up to the Nile. The Nile was right up to it. You can keep going. I just showed a picture. That's a reconstruction, obviously. There we go. This is a actual papyri.
That's not papyri.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. Hieroglyphs. I meant to say that was that's actual hieroglyphs of showing a gigantic boat carrying a granite obelisk.
Okay.
So, and then there's evidence of them using animals to carry blocks. You can see the stone block on there.
So granite obelisk. So
Obelisks.
you're
Those
just,
are huge.
Yeah.
Those are huge, dude.
But your point with that
There's,
is
look,
that-
there's another depiction on the bottom, a scene from the tomb at Giza. That's from a tomb at Giza, showing the transportation of a limestone sarcophagus and its lid from Tours to Giza.
Limestone sarcophagus to Giza. I thought they were all granite.
Well, there's different burials. That's from one of the lesser ones.
Exactly. This is my point. Is that they weren't all identical. And,
But there is identical ones.
But when it comes to Giza, like I would posit that we have, like you've seen History for Granite's video when he talks about the portcullis doors and about how they were made, designed to be opened and repeatedly.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a very compelling case when you think about the Orion-Giza correlation, and Orion being Osiris in their mythology and the god of rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a lot of sense that these places would have been a spot that you stuck your king just to kind of like get some god energy and then move him to the next spot and then move him to the next spot, which is why we don't find sarcophagi, which why we don't find bodies in the sarcophagi, because they weren't actually sarcophagi. It was just a bed for dude chilling for a little bit. That's why the places were accessible. And this actually corresponds with the Egyptian idea of the multiple gates for the afterlife. Go here, solve this problem. Go here, solve this problem. Hey, put this in your pocket, cheat that part. Go here, cheat that part. Go there, cheat that part. This isn't outside of the realm of it. Well, the only thing is that it says that these weren't built as tombs and tombs alone, which again, you get this pushback on this kind of thing that is just otherworldly. It's like what I'm saying here isn't anything insane. It actually isn't right in line with the Egyptian mythology, but it's going to get treated like I was saying there's a 10,000-year-old pyramid. So, and that's honestly a huge problem with it is we don't know for sure when there's so many mysteries surrounding this.
I agree.
Okay. So when for example, like that right there, here's a stone sarcophagus, ergo we know how. It's like, no, this is, if we don't address the mysteries head on and we don't actually look at them, we just extrapolate and look at other things and say, well, maybe this is this, maybe that's that, as opposed to actually dig in and try to admit the fact that we don't know certain things. The iron plate in the Great Pyramid, this is something that should be addressed. It's never addressed by mainstream Egyptology. They dismiss it while they hold up the cartouche that the same team found. That these guys were trustworthy archaeologists over here, they were fakers over here, depending on what piece of evidence they're holding up. And this is where we're at with it, where that's not scientific. That's bullshit, right?
It seems like you have a problem with the presuppositions that come along with the amount of evidence that we already have on things, like the data we already know, and then they're presupposing all that onto new discoveries.
I have a problem calling that science. I have a problem using that to cock block other ideas. I have a huge problem with that. You can say, well, this is what I believe all day long, but just like I showed you with Ailes Hydrica, cock blocking the idea of pre-3,000 year settling of Americas, this is... You've taken your scientific data. We've got the carbon dating. Then you take Bayesian modeling. Well, this isn't really science anymore, but we're going to kind of mess with it. And then you come up with this other idea. Fine. That's not science. I mean, video game speed running is more of a science than the historical method is.
But I don't know how you're defining science then, because science just means knowledge. That's what the word means. I mean, but
I'm defining it as the mainstream term, as the science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a freaking methodology. The scientific
So you're
method.
talking about the scientific method.
Yeah, well,
it's the historical method. It's an adjusted.
Okay.
It's using the principles of the scientific method to apply to history.
Okay, it's less scientific than somebody figuring out how to beat The Legend of Zelda on a speed run. That person sitting down and cracking the code and spending time. They have replicability. They can keep doing the same thing. Okay, that we all know. Video game speedrunners aren't scientists. We all know historians aren't scientists, but for some fucking reason, archaeologists want to put themselves up on a pedestal. This is a scientific position, and you can't argue with us on this. Like, no, dude. Okay, we can agree on the data and disagree on the conclusion. Archaeology won't let you do that. Egyptology won't let you do that. They will, but they're going to put you in the tinfoil nutter camp, and that's a serious problem because, like I brought up with the whole position on what I think about the erased dynasty there and Snefru. This is something that is going to get a lot of opposition because it challenges the written record of mainstream Egyptology, but it actually In my mind, it massages away the data a whole lot more satisfactory than just fudging the numbers and just saying, well, we're just going to do. I don't like the way the mean statistics come out. Let's see what we can do if we fuck with them. 28 different. Hey, this is the math. This is the formula we need. Nah, sorry, to me that's the opposite of science. But we see that a lot. Again, ego's involved.
Yeah, but in that case, if they're using a variable and they're adding, there's data that suggests something. For example, all of the inscriptions, all the papyri, the remains, all the artifacts, all pointing to there was a big project going on during Khufu's reign. Period. That no one disagrees with that. So you have all that data. So then that becomes part of your variables of plugging in the Bayesian math when you're doing that. I don't know if that's what they did.
No, that's not what they did.
I'm not saying that's what they did, but like if that's it just sounds like you're. I mean, like the paper from what I read made a lot of sense.
Well, again, I'll give you.
I wasn't confused at all about what they're
Can we
saying.
pause?
Yeah,
Can we pause? Because I think you guys have both made brilliant points and
move
good
on?
stuff and good conversation. But yeah, I think we can get it more interesting if we go on to the next topic. Because
I don't think we're gonna keep. Yeah, I think we dug enough
this
there.
one's beaten.
I was just going to repeat what I said about the Bayesian model.
Yeah.
We're at the same spot.
So
Okay.
So good stuff. So with what % confidence are you that it was built in the time of Khufu?
I would say like 95%.
95. I
Yeah.
thought you'd be higher. But
Yeah, I mean,
95.
there's 5% chance that there was maybe some construction before that. I'm leaving it open a little bit.
Good. And dates and percentages.
I would say it's probably built a couple hundred years before we think it was. I think that would still probably have fallen during the time of Khufu. I think that the whole timeline's a little foobar there. And I would give that about 60-70% chance
Of being
of me being right.
Of being,
I'm always right.
Of being within 200 years of the established date.
Of the 200, 300 years.
That's an interesting theory because you're still agreeing on the data. You're going, okay, it's all pointing to Khufu. It's all pointing to Khufu. Maybe Khufu's dynasty was older than we think.
Because there's one piece of data that doesn't. And here's the thing. It says, say for instance, I'm a creationist and I've got all of these writings and I've done all this stuff. And I have to take the carbon dating and make it fit my mold. Pseudoscience. Say I'm an Egyptologist. I've got all this dating and all this stuff, and I have to take the carbon dating and make it fit my mold. Pseudoscience.
I just don't think that's what they're doing, though.
That's exactly.
But I don't want to keep harping on the carbon dating.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the Sphinx.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
All right, cool.
Sounds
All right, cool. Welcome back, guys. Explosive first half or whatever that'll end up being. So nice job. Great conversation. Let's go to the Sphinx next, since we're in Egypt right now and it's right next door.
All right.
And I think Dan, you probably should start this one since Neal, you started the last one.
All
And
right.
just provide the evidence. First off, how old do you think the Sphinx is? Give me dates and percent.
The Sphinx as a carving, as it sits now, I'm going to go back at least 8,000 years. Besides the head,
Give me a percent. On that.
percent 70. Okay, the reason that I think the Sphinx is this old is a natural outcrop of rock that aligned to the rising sun. You go back to the Green Sahara, and the water would come up to a couple feet around that outcrop of rock. You could walk up to that outcrop of rock in those days, and you could watch the sun rise and use it as your little hitching post of the sun, as they call that stuff. So if you know anything about ancient Egyptian mythology and their belief in the primordial mound and the Bennu bird and the Ben stone, the first piece of soil that came through the old flooded waters, the first rock that came up, that first rock that came up was supposed to be the beginning of creation, the first part of creation. As such, I believe that the Sphinx was that in the real world, that they believed that this was, they venerated it as such, as this piece of rock that is in the water and touches the sun. I think that's why, as it got carved over the years, that they incorporated a big enclosure around it, was because as the Sahara dried, that water aspect was being lost, and that was a huge part of it. It was the water and the sky. I think that the first pyramidion, where a lot of people think it was a meteorite, I think it was probably a piece of the Sphinx that they used to target the sun, that somebody at some point carved off and stole for himself, to steal that magical rebirth power and put it on their pyramids. I think that and again, I believe this aligns well with their mythology and with what we see in the record, because when they did quit using it, it filled up with sand relatively quickly. I think that they quit using it because the thing didn't fill with water anymore. And so the Sphinx,
After the Green Sahara.
after the Green Sahara, slowly, and we can prove we can prove that the Sphinx predates the pyramids. There's a enclosure there that has a lot of runoff and stuff that proves that the water was filling that thing up there. That predates the dynastic timeline of the pyramids anyway. There's a pit there that fills with water, but didn't used to. There was a quarry pit that they dug out that's on the south side, I believe, of the Sphinx enclosure, and it fills with it. They've filled it up since, but it used to fill with water, and they tracked the erosion and shown that the Sphinx enclosure, not the Robert Schoch version, but the Sphinx enclosure's erosion shows both before and after that pit. And ultimately, I think that this is why it fell into disuse and was eventually found and then re-brought back in, is because once the water-sun correlation was gone, and then it was lost to history. And really the only real evidence that we have that it was used that way is the whole Orion-Giza correlation, which I know a lot of people dismiss, but archaeoastronomers that dig into that, there's been a lot of work done on that.
Do you think that there's a chance that it could be way older than that? I've heard dates like 40,000 years. A lot of people think 12,000 years. What your odds on it being way older?
Oh, gets slimmer the further we go back in time, I would say. But, if you go back 20,000 years, I'd say maybe 20% or so.
Isn't there something with like 14,000 or 12,000 BC? It was facing
Leo, yes. That's part of the Orion-Giza correlation. The Sphinx faces due east, and generally speaking, the convention is the age of the era is denoted by the astrological symbol the sun rises into on the vernal equinox, the spring equinox. And so facing due east, the lion would see the sun rise into Leo about 12,000 years ago.
And again, the constellation, the zodiac, is there. There's no evidence that the Egyptians had that zodiac until the Hellenistic period. That's a problem for me on that theory.
I understand that. But I would also point out that, again, like we see symbols all over the old world of these kinds of things. There's, like we were talking about Taurus earlier. So you could say that you don't agree with that because we don't see any symbolism that predates that. But like we see Scorpio, for example, potentially in Göbekli Tepe. We see the Taurus in Lascaux Caves, potentially.
That's like two different places, two different centuries.
Yeah.
Ryan, pull up the constellation Leo just so we can see.
Sure.
I want to see how big of a stretch it would be to think that this thing's a lion.
I would actually want to see how old it is. I think it's Babylonian.
Almost
I think
all
it's
of
at
them,
least the Bronze Age.
Yeah, almost all of them they're going to push back to then. But it's also interesting to note that the first four that we see are the ones that would have made the cross with each other. Like these ones, we go way back with
or not, Ryan. Either way is cool, man.
or not.
Oh, there we go.
He's trying.
If you could go pull up the Wikipedia just to see when the date, when it says the first time it's mentioned, maybe.
But
it might have some.
But again, that's we go with.
Okay, so
Where it says history, usually there's a history. If you keep going, it'll say history. Maybe keep going.
and
Deep sky. Is there a history section? No.
It should be a little further, maybe.
Keep going.
Super grok.
Oh, we could do that. First mention. Mesopotamia 4,000.
So
So it is
6,000 years
Sumerian.
ago.
So it is Sumer.
It's old, and the thing is these.
Great
Some
line.
some of these we can really look into and say, like with Aquarius, we can see, and Virgo, we can see that these had different symbols in Babylon than they did when the Greeks took them up. Some of these stretch back into prehistory, and they just kind of pop up when this first starts off, and they didn't have any evolution, and that we can find. Leo
Is
Scorpius,
Leo in the same place in the Babylonian zodiac, though? I don't even know if it is. I don't know.
Oh yeah, these are the same
Greek,
asterisms.
The Greek zodiac is very specific.
These are the same asterisms, the same constellation.
what percentage do you give
Regulus.
that this could have been built at the same time or near the same time as Göbekli Tepe for example?
I give it, I mean, 50, 60%, at near the same time, probably even higher than that. But
Okay.
like I would say,
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I mean, look, it's interesting that Leo exists as far back as Sumer. That's interesting to me. So like, you're not dealing with nothing, but I'm still going to say, where is, and especially because we're talking, that's in Mesopotamia. We're talking about Egypt now, and for all the excavations we've done,
Really,
all the temples,
1,000 miles away or something.
it's like not the other side of the world far away, but it's quite a distance, and they have quite a different culture too, if you think about it.
So
I just don't see them caring about Leo particular until the Hellenistic period.
well, this is where again I would point out that the zodiac is, I would call it the oldest esoteric knowledge in human history. The first people to figure out that there was a clock in the sky got to sit up on a hill and tell everybody else when to go hunt, and they brought him food and ladies, and he just sat on his ass, and he taught his kids how to sit on his ass.
And they knew when the floods were coming because the dog star, Sirius, which is Osiris, once they start to see that star pop up in the morning, I think it's in the morning, at a certain time, they knew that it's gonna get the dog day. That's why they say the dog day is hot, and then the flood's gonna come. So they knew the flood by the stars.
No, but this goes again. I showed you that bone earlier of 35,000 years ago. I'm extremely hard pressed to believe that they weren't paying painstaking attention to the sky way back in those days. And this is the kind of knowledge that, two things: one, it's going to be secretive, but two, it will also be shared amongst initiates. When the tribes get together and exchange food and blood and all that shit, this is the kind of thing that shamans are going to share with each other. And really quickly, to address the idea of these are different cultures, when if an Atlantis bro says, hey, we've got over 500 flood myths or whatever, we start talking about this culture talked to that culture. So clearly they got it from those guys who clearly got it from those guys who clearly got, okay, nobody has a problem with that.
Sure.
But as soon as we start talking about astronomy or something like that, we hit these, and I'll point out that astronomy, again, this is real magic. All right. These guys really told the future by looking at those stars. So in my mind, it's like out of everything esoteric, this was the one that they were fucking using. So to me, when it pops up out of prehistory, we're not sure where it came 6,000 years ago. We're not sure where it comes from. Asserting that it just showed up then in my mind. Well, we can say that, but it's, to me, clearly that's not how it would work.
So if we're talking about the evidence for it being older, the key piece of evidence is the erosion on the walls, right?
That's the Robert Schoch version.
Can we pull that up? I mean, that's got to be at the top of your list in terms of...
That's a big reason, yeah. It's a huge reason.
Yeah, let's look at that, Ryan. And then I don't understand how you explain this with wind. That's the only thing I struggle with, because it's like it's vertical.
That's what other geologists say, right?
Yeah, some geologists.
Well, there's water underneath it. So my understanding is, and I'm totally not an expert, so I'm just giving you my thoughts on this, is that the water underneath it sort of comes up.
Yeah, water wicking, as they call it.
Precipitates from underneath it, and that's where you get water and wind erosion, both together.
And see, that's where, in all honesty, what's funny about this to me is,
what do you mean it comes up underneath?
Because when I was there was actually a big puddle of water right next to it, and there's water underneath it that comes up sometimes.
So it's like almost like a tidal. It just goes up and down.
I guess
up and
it
down,
just comes up from the ground for however process.
They call it wicking.
That's what I forgot the name of it. Yeah.
So
it could be that,
like sitting in like groundwater, basically.
There's water underneath it. Yeah.
There is a lot of water,
but water underneath it isn't going to cause those things. The water has to be flowing down,
and that's why even when I was there, I saw a giant puddle right next to the Sphinx. It was wet.
Well,
sure.
So what's funny about this whole debate, to me, in all honesty, is that there's no question. When Robert Schoch sent these images around to his colleagues and didn't tell them what it was, every one of them, oh yeah, this is water erosion. It's the minute that the context shows up, the science gets called into question. And this is where, again, I'll call it pseudoscience all fucking day long. If this is scientific and this is how it is, and then the second that it doesn't coincide with my predetermined opinion, I just get to, well, let me figure out something. Maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it, man, at that point, I have a hard time not putting everybody that does that shit in the same camp as the creationists. It's like, this isn't, you're not.
Let's see some more photos too, Ryan.
I think another option is that that bottom section was naturally formed similar to that, and they only carved out the top of it. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, you had a mound there, and you have to carve out the Sphinx. So like most of that was already exposed.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I honestly think that this is evidence for them. This is what the Sphinx was designed to do. It was their ben.
Because okay, so
Like, look how that looks. That doesn't look like
but they cut out. Is that the Sphinx or the enclosure?
That's the enclosure.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But that's part of the water erosion.
but they cut out the limestone that was attached to that in order to expose that right there. So like that, that's the outer wall. So that's between an empty space and the Sphinx, and so that empty space used to be filled with limestone. So that all had limestone attached to it. So why would you cut out limestone and make it look like water erosion?
I'm not saying they made it look like that. I think that's just how it formed. That's how it looks now.
But it didn't form that way. They cut it that way. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think they cut. Like, I think it's mostly, yeah, it's cut. Like, I'm just saying, like, that's just what the material is already. Even cutting it, it's just, that's the material.
So it would just like fall off, you mean? Like you would have like loose, like you cut it and you don't get those lines, do you? I mean, you're just removing stone off of
I don't
that.
know. That's
off
a good
of that.
question.
Off of that
I
wall.
don't know. I'm not. I can't even get to this. Like, I don't know. I mean, I do know this though. I do know that the primary sources, like the inscriptions, the later dynasties, are all pointing to the. Is it Khafre, the son of Khufu, that they think it is? Yeah, that's what they say. And that's, so I'm just kind of going off the material evidence. They're all claiming this. I would like to see really good reason to think otherwise.
Well, that's where where you talk about the apparent recarving of the face, which is, there's definitely a difference in the weathering on the two. But I mean, another one is just the common sense that we know that they did steal things from each other. We know that they stole credit from one another. We know that certain rulers would erase other rulers from history. So I honestly think that that's asserting. I mean, it's really easy to claim anything, but it doesn't mean, Annie XD, he's one of my favorite people. Fuck you, Annie. But that's.
He's coming on the show at some point.
He is.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
What a guy.
There is there is an underground shaft underneath it. That's it's pretty.
Well,
interesting.
there's a CIA document that was just recently been circulated.
I
That
know.
talks about the stuff on it. And see, and now this stuff gets interesting because the alphabet boys can't really be trusted in disinformation since, I mean, hell,
right during a war, all of a sudden, all this
I mean,
UFO stuff gets leaked. I start getting suspicious.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, there is definitely, in my mind, there's definitely something up with the Sphinx. Like, they've been talking, to hell with whatever Edgar Casey says or any of that. It's like you see things like this, and then the pushback that we get on the ideas that it's as old as it is, the astronomical stuff, the Orion-Giza correlation. If I'm sure you guys have heard of it, but the three belt stars in Orion's belt lining up with the three stars, or the three Great Pyramids.
What do you mean by lining up, though? I mean,
by as in being in alignment over the things is like
at a certain time.
At a certain time, the Sphinx facing due east on the horizon, lining up with the Sphinx with Leo, and the Nile and the Milky Way meeting on the horizon.
Because I know with the north thing is easy. You wait for a solstice when half the day. I'm sorry, equinox. Yes. Equinox, not solstice. Equal day, equal night. That's why it's called equinox, not equal night. And you have the sun at noon is right at the top, and you cast a shadow pointing north. Plus, at night, you have Polaris. At the time, it wouldn't have been Polaris, but it doesn't matter. Whatever the pole star is, you have that. So you can get, to me, the pyramids pointing north is not that big of a mystery.
No, but there's.
But this would be, this would be pretty interesting.
Okay, this alignment was. Give you some history on the bullshit of debunking really quick. When this alignment was first posited by Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock, mainstream mainstream astronomers debunked it off of a couple of things. Number one, they claimed that Leo wasn't the astronomical symbol that the sun would be rising into. Well, they debunked it back in the 90s when you couldn't get on the internet. And so the only person you could go find a book that was going to tell you the ages of the different astronomical signs was a zodiac, an astrologer. So you're not going to get scientific evidence. Now you can go Google it and see that they were lying. Okay, the other thing they lied about, which is really fucked up to me, they say it was exactly 180 degrees off. They say, well, look, you've got the three pyramids, and they're exactly 180 degrees off from the three stars in Orion's belt. But now imagine if here's the sky, and I'm drawing a picture of it on the. Which way do I flip it? This is the fact that it was 180 degrees off and not 72 degrees off. Should have said everything. But this was mainstream debunkers attacking this back in the day. Now, on the other side, we have Vincenzo Orofino, who is an archaeoastronomer out of Italy. And about 10 years ago, he did a paper on the Orion-Giza correlation. He found even more evidence. He believes it's fourth dynasty correlation. So there's, as typical scientists kicking the can back and forth. But he found an inverse correlation between the apparent magnitude of the star and the size of the pyramid. The brighter the star, the smaller the pyramid. And it actually follows a gradient. It's not just a random. So in other words, there's a lot of evidence for this, but it's often disregarded.
I feel like all you would need for this, though, is to calculate how the distance is between these three and just build your pyramids exactly that way. Like, I don't think it really takes much to do this.
No, it'd take quite a bit to get them in the right spots.
Seems
Yeah, but
more
you can't-
impressive the true north to within just
That's that to me. I agree with that. But like I said, that's all you need is an equinox. You need shadow casting on an equinox.
Shadow casting will work for drawing lines on the ground, kind of.
It'll get you to true north.
Yeah, but
it'll explain why it's not exact. Like today we can do it perfectly. I think it's off by a little bit, but it's not perfect. Mm-hmm. But which is still
but we squared it to
mind blowing
itself.
that they can do that. Yeah. But it seems like they're doing it by eye. It seems like.
Now, they squared it to itself. We were talking about the Great Pyramid, and it's 756 feet each side with about a 2-inch to 3-inch variation.
On the pyramids?
Yeah.
Oh, they're it's not perfectly. They're definitely off by like feet.
The perimeter of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah. It's not perfect.
It's goddamn close.
No.
Yeah, 756 feet per side with a few inches variation.
No, that's not. My understanding is that it's off by like feet, like a couple feet.
Ryan. Check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Look it up on Ask Rock, maybe.
But I think
are the sides of the Great Pyramid equal? Right? Wouldn't that be the question to ask?
Yeah, that sounds fair.
I know it's close, but my understanding is they're not the same.
Or how far off are they?
A little bit.
Question.
A little bit.
It'll tell us.
Yeah. $230. So
inches.
Meters.
You see, this is inches off.
Are not exactly equal in length, though they are extremely close. Yeah, everyone knows they're extremely close.
That's that's
0.1 meters is 3 inches.
So yeah, that's about what I was saying.
That really is 3 inches?
Yeah.
It's not very far, man. This was extremely accurate, and
I'm sorry.
This was done with ropes.
Are you
supposedly.
sure? I think it's a couple of feet.
No, it's 3 inches. Yeah, it's like 3.6.
Ask how many feet differences is that, and maybe it'll say like point. Oh, there you go, feet and inches.
0.1 meters is 3.6 inches, I think.
So 755. See, they're off by like a foot.
No,
Yeah.
One of them 756.
yeah, which is off by a quarter foot.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
So some of them are off
No,
by
and I, like I said,
0.3 meters.
I'm willing to grant that it's very, very close.
but it's okay. It's
But if you had lasers, you'd be like spot on. You got it perfect.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But do they don't have the outer perimeter right now? So how do we not know that the casing stones?
That's a good question. Someone was talking about either you have they know where they know where it was, right?
There's a ditch.
Yeah, so they use that where it was
to the inch though. I mean,
yeah.
Well, here's honestly one of the things that's interesting.
By the way, you know who acknowledges the distance or why they're off is Randall Carlson acknowledges that they're not equal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because he thinks they did it on purpose.
Yeah. Well, David Miano thinks that this is why there's the concavities, why it's an 8-sided pyramid. He said that it's because of making mistakes, which I beep, beep. But anyway, ultimately, like, if you go to the Greenwich Observatory, it doesn't have measurements this accurate. And it was built much, much later, much more manageable materials. And it was designed to be aligned perfectly north, south, east, and west. This is the kind of thing, to get those kind of numbers today, we would use a laser. And it wouldn't be as accurate. It would be more accurate, but it's definitely. You're never doing that with ropes and sticks.
I agree. What they did is phenomenal. It's mind-blowing.
You guys are agreeing too much. I got to get you fighting again.
Because it really is amazing how close they got. But I just don't think it's evidence of like lasers.
No, I don't think it's evidence of lasers. I think, honestly, I think they used concave mirrors. Like if you use a concave mirror, it's like a magnifying glass. You're going to get a circle of light that's a specific size at a specific distance. And so, like, if you've ever seen that plate that kind of looks like a target that's in the Cairo Museum, it's got concentric rings. Mm-hmm. You fill up the center ring, you're X feet away. Fill up the second ring, you're X feet away. Fill up the next ring, you're X feet away. Then you're measuring with light, but you're still having some. You have to get everything level, hence the trench.
Shouldn't there be like a glyph of that?
You would think, but I don't know. I'm still.
It's a good theory. It's like, but I don't know.
I mean, if you measured something on one side and you cut yourself a rope, and then you have one rope, and then you can use that rope for each side, you would get pretty close.
Yeah, that's not going to work. As an electrician, I can tell you right now, cable sag.
It'd be off, but
cable sag is going to bone you into the ground.
Yeah.
At 756 feet, you're talking meters.
Let's go to Pillar 43. We good stuff on Egypt, guys. Thank you both. Very enlightening.
You're agreeing too much, Massive.
Exactly. You guys need to start fighting again. So, talk to me about Pillar 43, and I think Dan, you're probably the guy to kick it off. Unless you want.
No, you can start off. Okay.
Yeah, you bring up an image of the Pillar 43, please, sir. Thank you so much. All right. So the base hypothesis is,
and this is Göbekli Tepe, Turkey, and this is 10,000 years old, or 9,600.
BC,
roughly 10,000 BC.
Yeah.
So the work of Dr. Martin Sweatman basically starts with the scorpion under the assumption that that's Scorpio. Then he starts to work out from there. He believes that the vulture above is Sagittarius. Certain other constellations are a part of this image as well, but those are the two that are important because of the position of Sagittarius with the sun at the time that he's dating. It does line up.
But where is Sagittarius on here?
The vulture. The vulture's out.
That's not what Sagittarius looks like.
The vulture's outstretched. It's a different asterism. Same symbol. Remember I was saying it's the same number in the sky. It's just a different picture aligned with it.
How would we know that, though?
Okay, we don't know that off the top. This is, again, what I mentioned earlier about Dr. Giulio Magli. This is how archaeoastronomy is done when you don't know. This is why they use so much math to bear, and this is why it gets so funny because a guy like Martin Sweatman, who's a mathematician, comes at it and he's like, I've done my statistical analysis, and there's a very low chance that I'm wrong. Other people look at it and go, well, that's fucking crazy.
Ryan, you need to pull up Sweatman's chart on this. I think that'll help you explain it.
But, okay, so, there's Sagittarius there. You see with the sun, he's basically got different symbols there. He's got different asterisms, but the same position in the sky.
Holding the sun.
Yes, holding the sun, as he believes. Now, those top three handbags we've all seen, now you notice each one has an animal next to it. He believes that the main body of this picture is one of the solstices or equinoxes, I forget, and those are the other three on top, and that's showing the astronomical symbol associated with each of those. Then he believes this is showing a date of a comet impact, but one of which may or may not be the case, but what is really interesting to me is when you take those little tally marks, the little V's and the squares, using the squares as months and the V's as days, and assuming that those three on top are three more and that the main body is one other one, is exactly 365 days denoted on this thing. And he's done a lot of mathematical analysis, which is the best we can do in this case. Now, we can't say 100% this is certain, but we can say that, there we go, bingo.
You skeptical, Neal?
Yeah, it just sounds very arbitrary of how we're plugging it. Like the solar calendar is a later. I mean, Egypt was the first to do it, but with the zodiac, if we're talking about the Babylonians, they had a lunar calendar with 360. So it's like we're jumping all over. It just looks like it feels off to me. they would have this.
Well,
What do you think that represents?
Those inscriptions there.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's hard to say. It is interesting that you can get that calculation. I'll say that. I didn't. Show me how exactly you got that again. I'm curious. One of them's a month. Those are the month on top, and there's 29 or 30 of them. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's got
The days.
yeah, days and months.
11 lunar months plus 10 days, and then the summer solstice.
Yeah, but the other one and then the three on top. There's it's easier, better to watch him describe it than
Yeah, I would
it
have
like
to listen.
this,
'Cause it's to me, firsthand reaction. It sounds like we're just kind of arbitrarily assigning.
absolutely, and I can understand that, except for that we are starting from a known. We're starting from Scorpio, which we can argue about whether or not they identified it back then. But again, this is a field of study, like we were talking about earlier about leaning towards experts, and this is a field that you're no offense, you're not well versed in. This is how they do it. This is how they always do it. They come in there, they find something that they recognize with, and they build off from there. He's doing a pretty goddamn good case. There's not 12 handbacks up top, and he's eliminating some. He's not arbitrarily picking and disregarding.
I see that, but we also know about Superman today. So if I was like, I think that's Superman, I'm going from the known to the unknown. Isn't that like how
Sure.
do I know they know about Superman?
But you don't. But at the same time, if we take different symbols and we look for ones that we can say other cultures attach themselves or other cultures recognized, because we don't know anything. We don't know what gods they worshipped. We don't know what foods they ate barely, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But we do know that other people attributed the scorpion to that specific chunk of stars in the sky. Out of everything that we know, that's the closest thing that I can say for certain those people and me can touch stones on. Besides, we both like sex and food. This is something we can agree on. That potentially, they definitely saw the same pattern of stars in the sky. There's no question of that. Whether or not they saw a scorpion, we can argue about. But they definitely saw that same little group of stars in the sky. Now,
Right.
as I was saying earlier, the zodiac didn't just crop up as like, oh, here's a bunch of pretty symbols. This was a old timepiece that had been getting used, in my opinion, as long back as that lady was carving that moon bone. It's been something that we've been doing forever.
And just to pause real quick, Sweatman and you think that this is depicting the cataclysm of the Younger Dryas.
Sweatman
right?
believes it's depicting specifically like the date of the
Like that
cataclysm.
date. Yeah. Okay. And maybe we'll get to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because even with the zodiac being known to the Babylonians and the Sumerians, actually, we still don't have any like indication of them being knowledgeable of the precession of the equinoxes until the time of Eratosthenes in the 3rd century.
But if you disregard the work of Giorgio Sant'Alba from Hamlet's Mill, I don't know if you ever read Hamlet's Mill. That is a slog. It's like digging through a sewer looking for diamonds. There's diamonds there, but man, the dude wrote it like Da Vinci. He wrote it deliberately hard to read. But Hamlet's Mill goes through the case basically of them recording precession of the equinoxes in mythology and stuff, the numbers and the symbolism together. And I would highly advise at least looking into it. Again, reading it's a rough on the brain, man. It's hard.
Because that takes a lot of time and recording
It does.
to understand about the wobble and the...
Takes thousands and thousands of years, like that moon bone that I showed you 35,000 years ago. They've been watching this. What else do you do in those days? You hunt, you fuck, and then what?
Sure.
Watch God, big stuff spin in the sky. So you get good at that, man. And then the guys that got good at measuring it got really... here's the one thing with precession of the equinoxes that could have fucked somebody. If I'm sticking a stake in the ground and I start measuring and I teach my son and he teaches his son, and then 12 generations later, somebody goes, man, my great-grandpa got that stick wrong. I'm going to have to move that a little bit. That's the only way. That place where I showed you that one woman was making the moon observations. If she sat in that same spot for 10 generations, she's going to see precession of the equinoxes, period. And so to me, the idea that we didn't catch it until the Greeks is laughable. That's
the first time it's ever written down. And then
sure, it's the first time it was ever written down. I mean, but you know, how are they going to write it down when the moon bone is a great example? How they write stuff down? They drew a picture of the phase of the moon and drew a pattern that resembled what they saw.
You bring up another problem, in my opinion, is language writing, these things like the culture gets passed through written text, whatever. The people who inhabit that part of the world, who adopted the culture of the Babylonians and eventually adopted the zodiac, the Hittites, for example. These are Indo-European speakers. They don't actually get there until after 4000 BC, and they came from north of the Black Sea. So this is a totally different culture before that, thousands of years before that. And and the Babylonians, for example, they're from Sumer are pre-Semitic, so they're native. They don't even speak a Semitic language. They're before the Sargon of Akkad, for example, is the first Semitic dynasty, the Akkadian dynasty. That's in 2500 BC. And so you could see cultural shifts happening at these time periods. And the idea that these cultural ideas go back before all these language shifts, people shifts, is a lot. You would have, it's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible.
I mean, the bow and arrow did it.
No, the things do get passed down through.
If it works, it don't fucking matter what language, bro. We just use it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm just saying culture,
I would
culture relies on things being passed down through people who can understand things. And it would be it's a lot. It's a lot of thousands of years of gaps.
Let's put it this way. We still today have a bunch of people reading their horoscopes to find out what's going to happen to them tomorrow. Because some caveman 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 years ago figured out that when the sun rises into that sign, it's time to chase the herds. That has extrapolated. So cultural, and that doesn't matter if you're Japanese, Chinese, American, fucking Zimbabwean. That's a ubiquitous thing. The stars predict the future. This is as above, so below, right? And it's not that we drive the heavens drives us. This is a culturally ubiquitous concept. And
that is very true.
I would argue that is...
The ancients were definitely in touch with what was happening in the sky.
And I would argue that the convention of splitting the sky into 12 different pieces, even the Chinese horoscope has two, that's got it's 20, I think it's 20 in the one, but then it's got a 24 version in the other. The Egyptian ones, with the Egyptian hours of the day even, were based on that.
So the oldest ones don't have 12. They have a different number, 18 or something.
It was 10 and 2.
Yeah.
10 during the day and 2 at night, if I remember right. But
I think that's the later one.
Okay.
The oldest ones have 18
Even that little star disc that we see that's from Phoenician, I think it is. It's just a little clay tablet with a few things that scratched in it. But that one's split up into a system of 12.
Yeah.
And this isn't, and
that's Bronze Age, though.
Yeah.
Or
it's pre-Bronze Age, yeah. But
wait, Phoenician?
Well, I don't know if it's
Phoenician,
but
it can't be past Bronze Age.
It's like the oldest depiction we have of any sort of. Up until that moon bone gets accepted by everybody and their brother, it's considered the oldest depiction. I can't think
of the zodiac
right now. Not of the zodiac. It's got 3 different lines and then some writing on it in a couple of different spots. And
that's Babylonian.
It's a Babylonian. Okay, yeah, the sky disc thing.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's Babylonian.
Pillar 43.
Pillar 43. Yeah.
Anything else?
Anything else on Pillar 43? Well, yeah. I think it's important to look at symbols like this because, in all honesty, we're trying to say, for instance, we got 5,000 different symbols in front of us. We try to translate them. We try to translate the hieroglyphs. We try to translate the Ronga script. We try to translate all these things. Now, Göbekli Tepe has got a ton of different iconography. As far as touchstones go for interpretation of symbols, again, the stars are the closest thing that we're going to be able to, in my mind, be able to identify with. You can say that this is a cult of different animals or something, but that's so fucking lazy, isn't it?
What do you think the handbags?
Those animals are. I know that those animals are native to that land. So
some of them are. There's a couple that aren't.
It could be marking something.
The handbags. Sweatman believes that those denote sunrises. This is your solstices and equinoxes.
You think it's coincidence that they're found around the world, or
no? Actually, I think that kind of a funny thing. I think that it's the symbol of somebody holding the knowledge of astronomy. It's just somebody. We in this case, it can look like a sunrise, but when you've got some Anunnaki holding a bag in its hand, it doesn't look the same as a sunrise. Now it looks like a bag.
The consensus on what those are is those are the buildings of the houses of the area. It's a roof on top.
Yeah, that's what
Everyone thinks. Yeah.
That they also think that center ball is a skull and not a sun. They believe it's a skull cult. And again,
Really?
yeah,
I never heard that.
Yeah, there was a skull cult in the region. They did a lot of they did peel skulls and reskin them and all that shit. But again,
the arc on the handbag, the handle
roof
on the handbag is the roof on the mainstream theory. But are you saying, just hit me, that's like the sunrise and sunset?
that's the sunrise.
That's the path of the sun.
Well, it's showing the actual sunrise breaking the horizon, and there's the animal next to it that would be rising into. So like the sun,
is it the path of the sun? Actually,
not the whole path of the sun. That this is denoting a sunrise breaking the horizon. There's the horizon and there's the sun, and that makes the top half of the handbag. It's the top half of the sun coming up over the horizon.
Okay.
The negative space is the arc part. It's a circle drawn around it.
And so you think it's just coincidence that they're found around the world, Neal?
I don't think it looks like the handbags. I could see why someone might think that, but I don't think it's the same. These aren't found all the way around the world. Those are mostly in the same place.
Yeah, that Mexico one's
That's
bullshit.
fake. Yep, Mexico one's
you see
fake.
it a lot.
All the rest of them are all from the Middle East.
Yeah.
You got to find a better chart.
It's not his fault. It's that stuff's getting to be.
It's not real.
You know, that's the problem with AI. A lot of content creators complain that AI is making.
It hallucinates.
They are found in at least like three different continents
in the old world.
Yeah.
Well,
So Africa and the Middle East.
The ones that they find in the
And
New
South
World are
America,
definitely
too.
No,
there's ones in South America. They don't look identical.
they don't look like that at all. Though.
But no, they look pretty
And
close.
we know what they're doing because the inscription tells us that they're cultivating the tree, the Dumutsi tree. That's called, what is it? It says it right on the Akkadian, that text right there. It says people get mix these up with they say that's the Anunnaki. It's not the Anunnaki. It's the Apkallu, different divine being, and it's not even Sumerian. It's Assyrian from like 700 BC. So it's not even that ancient. It's from the Iron Age.
There's an Olmec handbag.
Yeah, that looks kind of similar. I can see why someone would make that. But it tells you. But my point is, over here it says these Apkallu are cultivating a what kind of tree is it again? Where's the tree called? It's some sort of tree.
Acacia.
But
No, not acacia. It's a different tree.
Is there more in South America, Ryan? I thought
there's ones on the statues at Ollantaytambo.
That's another problem
Yeah.
I noticed.
Ollantaytambo?
That's another problem I noticed with the pseudo people, though. Sorry to say that pseudo, or actually alternate people, is there's usually a lot of the times there's an inscription right there that says something, and they just ignore it.
But man,
like the Dendera light bulbs, there's an inscription.
What are people saying about that is being ignored?
All right, let's see. Let me take a look at this one. I can't see it. It's still small. Oh, let me put my glasses on. Can you make that bigger? Okay. You have Mesopotamia. All of those on the right are Mesopotamia.
It's just fake.
And then the only one that's from the New World is the one in the middle. That's it. And then you have Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah.
So only one of these is from the New World. And I admit, it does look like a handbag. It's pretty interesting. But all the rest of them are all from Mesopotamia.
Well, to really quickly,
but it's misleading because someone goes, look at all these, they all look the same. Right. They're all from the same place.
I get it. Ryan's not pulling up good images.
Yeah.
But to really quickly address what you were saying about the writing next to it, I think this is something that we need.
Ryan, nothing else from South America. I'm sorry. Let's just find out if there's no more South American.
Look up the statue of Viracocha at. The statue of Viracocha at, where's the gateway of the sun at? Tiwanaku, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the statue of Viracocha at Tiwanaku. It's weathered as fuck, but the weapons on it looks like, some people think it's weapons, but it looks like little handbags he's holding on each side. Or on one side, I think the other side's... Okay, no, there's another statue. Oh, that's not the one. There's like a larger statue, like a fish statue. Maybe that's not the right place. He's the one where he's got seashells on his belt.
Puma Punka?
Maybe it is Puba Punka. I don't know.
Don't worry about it.
I get these places.
Fine. Ryan will look for it while we continue.
One of the examples is the Dendera light bulb thing.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like light bulbs, but you could read the hieroglyphs actually says these are the two worlds of night and day, and they come from the lotus flower. And there's a lotus flower, and then the snake comes out. It's explaining the artwork in the text.
Yeah. But a lot of these cases, it's like in that one, it's very esoteric. Like the interpretation is still
Yeah,
and
night and
to
day is
anything.
very
And
But
another thing,
is lotus flower listed on that light bulb thing?
as far as I know,
Yes.
yeah.
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 Okay. So why would they call a lotus flower a light bulb?
Well,
know.
because
Just playing.
That's a weird question.
what stupid Egyptians.
Yeah.
No, but it is. I think it is.
Well,
worth-
the Egyptians don't call it a light bulb.
no,
they just
they
call it
don't.
a lotus
That's-
flower.
Yeah, it's a joke. But I think it's worth pointing out that when we see things, we always you read the inscriptions on something, and it's like if you extrapolate that to the modern day, and if I go pick up a magazine and I read it, there's a caption that's going to be about the artwork. There's going to be writing that means nothing else. There's all kinds of writing that's writing that's mundane that doesn't really mean eat at Joe's, right? I mean, there's a lot of this stuff that we see. I think that it's one thing like if you've got like on dude's handbag itself, it says something specifically, but I'll take the back of a DVD, for example. There's a whole big section that's talking about government laws and shit that has fuck all to do with the rest of what's on that DVD. So there's always, I think we have to be careful when we interpret inscriptions because
That's a good point,
the
but when
culture is
it-
not the same as ours.
That's a good point. But when it's explaining what's going on, when it says this is happening here, and then it lines up with what you're looking at, you go, oh, okay.
Yeah. No,
So do you think that the Scorpio is nothing on Pillar 43, and that
I
there's-
just think it's a scorpion.
okay?
I mean,
That's what
I think we're just applying our own understanding of we see the scorpion, we think Scorpio, and I think that's what's going on. And I just don't think there's enough to go off of to associate it with Scorpio.
Yeah.
That's where I would employ you to look into the field of archaeoastronomy some because
I'll look into it.
Yeah,
I don't think it's impossible.
No, there is there's a lot of math that goes into this. Basically, there's the old world, which is funny because this falls in. They do this as new world, but generally speaking, in the old world, we know what people believed. So we can go to Greece and we can look at an artifact and say, okay, this is going to be Venus and this is going to be Saturn and this is going to be. But we can't do that in Göbekli Tepe. We can't do that with the Mayas. So they use math, and they use busted math, like hardcore statistical analysis to eliminate chance.
You say Göbekli Tepe, but do you mean Pillar 43?
I mean Pillar 43 specifically.
Because
yes,
are
sorry.
there other examples of there's the I mean there's like the sunlight on the equinox at not Göbekli Tepe but
Karahan Tepe with all the face, yeah.
Or what about in Egypt at Karnak
face.
Temple? Do you know about Karnak Temple?
Yes.
The sun at the winter solstice, the sun literally sets on an altar.
Yeah.
And it's like every year there's hundreds of people, maybe thousands, that go and watch this thing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And so they're definitely building things based on.
They're building things
You know.
based on where the sun is and lighting
that's not-
shit,
that's not in
shit
question.
up. But are there other examples of like
Stonehenge too.
of like star systems embedded into the stone anywhere
Potentially, like
at Göbekli Tepe?
not necessarily at Göbekli Tepe, but at Cyberk, I think it is. Sayburc, I think it is. And we'll look for Orion, Taurus. You'll see very, very similar. Again, flipped 180 degrees, which is interesting, but it seems to be a convention back in those times that they would flip as above, so below. Maybe we're just opposite kind of thing. But okay, there is on the right. This is the earliest master of beast symbol we see in the world.
It's very ubiquitous.
And on the left, you see a man with a stick being attacked by a bull, which if you look at Taurus and Orion together, that very much is what you have, is a bull chart. And so, this being so old, I'm not 100% sure that we're looking at the Lynx and Leo, but I would put 90 percentile on that Taurus and Orion. And again, I've done a lot of just astronomy fucking around when I was a kid, walking around with a compass and fixing stars and shit. And like when you spend some time doing that, man, I've gone on about this so many times. You might have both heard me say it, but if you want a real touchstone to somebody that lived right here 20,000 years ago, we don't know what gods used. We don't know what food. We don't know morality. We don't know any of it. But I can go up and look at the night sky and see the same damn thing he did. Yeah. And that's a big deal when you really think about it, as far as our ability to touch the past.
Sure, but are they looking at the same? Are they associating the same collection of bright stars with that?
They might not be, but it's the same.
That's another thing, yeah.
They might not be, but there's.
I mean, it's pretty likely.
It's
right?
pretty likely.
I don't think so.
Taurus and Orion, you don't
Because you have to arbitrarily connect dots in the sky that don't necessarily. Like you might have a collection of
that's-
stars that look okay. There's a few bright ones there. We can make something out of that. You can make anything you want out of it, though.
I'll challenge you to do this over the next
You know?
year. If you have time, once a month, go out and try to just track the zodiac. You'll find really quickly that these asterisms are equidistant. Basically, they're kind of just lumped together. It almost does itself. You just kind of look at if you're trying to.
And if you're actually when I was in the desert in southern Israel near Masada, we stayed there for a few days. And there's no light pollution at all, and you could see not only can you see the stars, you could see the like blue white stuff behind it.
Yep.
And I think that had a lot to do with why they lumped certain stars together, because you could see some sort of like
what's the different. You know what the ecliptic is, right? It's like the apparent path of the sun. The stars that populate the ecliptic are the ones that are ubiquitous around the cultures for obvious reasons. The same reason that we all have bows and arrows with flights. This works. Yeah. And so again, like I would argue that,
and they're always spinning around. So it's in our we spin around, but it looks like that.
I would argue that this is extremely ancient.
So that's there's definitely an ecliptic thing going on, and the question is, are they lumping the same stars together and making the same patterns? You know, that's the question.
What evidence is there that the Romans built Baalbek?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah, the big stones that they
trilithon,
they cut and moved the.
I mean, the material underneath it is Roman. So how do they get the older one above the
material underneath is Roman?
Yeah,
no,
it is.
No,
the material underneath the trilithon is Roman.
No,
it's all Roman.
No, the material there's a clear section where it becomes unambiguously Roman, and there's some major problems.
You could see the same exact style. That style right there. Do you know the Herod's temple built in the same century?
Yeah,
same style.
And
it just doesn't have that same size stone.
Okay, but that's the only other place you see that used
because it's from the same time period.
Okay, and again above it we see actual
it's not
Roman
actually the only
construction.
place either.
And I'll point out a few things to you to show you that it's not Roman.
And the same region too.
I'll show you some reasons it's not Roman. Number one, the trilithon stones don't use the Roman foot. All three of the stones in the ground still do. The stone of the pregnant woman, the other two stones in Baalbek, they are measured with the Roman foot. The trilithon's not. It's not measured with the Roman foot. The other thing, another really big one is the Romans put their most impressive features in their buildings right in your damn face when you walked in. This is on the back side. You got no, hang on. You got to hike to the back side to find it. So why?
That's the size of blocks.
That they
and we know they can lift that stuff. Have you read Vitruvius? You never read Vitruvius?
There's tried to move a stone like this in Catherine the Great's time, and it took modern metallurgy of the day, and they barely pulled it off.
So Vitruvius, who wrote in the 1st century BCE in Book 10, writes exactly how they would. He talks about gigantic stones of heavy weight. It's a whole chapter on
and
it.
in real history, we've tried it,
technology
and we couldn't do it.
Described about how it's done. With levers,
so does Graham Hancock
cranes.
And Christopher Dunn. I don't care. I mean, we have people that tried. Catherine the Great's people tried to move a stone smaller than this.
That you could point to people who.
Okay, well that's what you're doing right now, and except for that, you're telling me somebody that doesn't, he could have been blowing smoke. Catherine the Great's people recorded it all, and we know that they had to repeatedly use the most modern metallurgy of the time. And the other thing, well, like I was saying, they put this on the back side, and you can disregard that, but I would challenge you to find another Roman edifice with the most impressive feature on the back side. And then the other one...
you could point to the Herod's wall was the backside, and it looks just like this.
The other thing that I would
Herod's
point out...
wall.
Yeah, the other thing that I would point out here is that we were looking at... The Romans did what you would call it, equal things. Yeah, that's not, man.
That's the same style of building. Yeah, what do you mean? Look at the bottom, the huge stones.
That's not even remotely as
and
close
look,
as the same
if you can go the ones inside the building, because the wall keeps going. I don't know if you can find a way to get inside there. It looks even bigger.
Look
how, dude. That's the same wall.
How much do those weigh? The biggest ones there.
The biggest ones there, probably 200.
They're the biggest stones that were ever moved by human hands at Baalbek.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's the biggest one.
Okay.
So we're comparing style, but it's not the same size.
Okay. Now, Romans used a where they tried to make things.
That's not the one.
Ryan,
I'm thinking
figure
to make
out how
things
big
equal.
the biggest ones are there.
You put it on the left side, you put it on the right side. Symmetry. Romans were very big on symmetry, which is why there's 3 other stones in the ground, because they were going to emulate the Trilithon when the Romans came and took the site over. And in my mind, they had dudes tasked to dig it up, and then somebody else comes in.
Where's the evidence of the temple that was there before? Do you think people would talk about this gigantic megalithic temple that's there? There's nothing. It never gets talked about. It's only after this is built. It's only after the first century.
Show me why didn't the Romans record when they built it?
They did.
The Romans never once talk about building.
Lucian.
The Romans never talk about setting those major stones at Trilithon. They talk about building.
Not building.
They talk about
They
building.
talk about it, though.
Okay, so
Yeah, but it's all after that period.
But you're asking me why is there no record of it? But then I'm asking you, the Romans
There's not a record of everything
the Romans
being built.
the Romans who kept meticulous records of what
No.
they built. The Romans
did-
kept
they did
very
not. No, they
meticulous
didn't.
records.
No, they didn't.
Why do I know when the Parthenon was built? That's the
that's-
Greeks.
that-
Why do I
you
know
mean
when
the
the Colosseum was built? Why do
Because
I know?
those are-
Why do I
those
know when
are
Hadrian's
world
Wall was
wonders.
built? Why do I know when Hadrian's Wall was built?
Those are like way.
That's just a fucking wall.
Yeah, but that you're talking about ones that everyone knows. There's so many buildings that have no records on it at all.
And
Hundreds and
so
maybe
then why are
1,000
you
I can
invoking
point to.
that as an evidence against it?
But because after this is built, it's talked about by contemporary writers.
Okay, and
Lucian
again-
of Samosata lived in 150 AD. He talks about this whole temple complex.
Absolutely.
But no one before it does.
And we talk about the period. Nobody talks about it before that. Baalbek was a fucking backwater up until the Romans took over. It was more or less.
No,
it was
actually a thriving.
Okay.
It was.
Anyway.
It was actually part of the Phoenician dynasty.
Yeah, and then the Phoenicians collapsed, and then there was this long period of time, and then other people came and took over.
No.
Anyway, what I was getting at earlier about the symmetry.
The Phoenicians made a comeback in the Hellenistic period.
Yeah.
They were known as being fishermen. There was a big comeback in the Phoenicians.
There is no record of that. There's no
That's
record.
not
of,
true.
There's no record of them building this place. There's no record of the Romans building this place. And again,
But
the
they
Romans did.
talk
Hang
about
on,
it
let me
right
finish what I was
after.
saying. They talk about symmetry. The Romans always use symmetry. We have 3 big stones off in one side. We have 3 big stones in the quarry.
Wait.
I posit to you the Romans were going to emulate what they saw
So
here.
there was a gigantic megalithic
Let me finish,
structure
please.
here,
Let me
but
finish,
no one
please.
talked about it until after the Romans.
Let me finish.
It makes no sense.
Let me finish, please. There's 3 big stones, and they're trying to emulate those 3 big stones by putting something on the other side to make it symmetrical. They go to dig up those 3 stones. They use the Roman foot. Those stones on the wall, again, don't use the Roman foot. I mean, you can argue this all you want. That's a smoking gun. These do not use the Roman foot, but the ones in the ground do. That more right there, I don't know what more you need to show you.
So
that
the
those
ones
are two
underneath it
different-
use the Roman
No,
foot.
the ones that are in the ground that are quarried but never put in the wall. The stone of the pregnant woman and the other 2 big boys over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't, you said?
They do. Those
Yeah.
ones don't. The ones in the wall. So so here's my thing.
That's more evidence that they did it, though.
No, the ones in the wall should have the Roman foot if the Romans put it in there. The ones in the ground have the Roman foot. So here's what I think happened. Dude comes in, he's tasked with building this site and making it Roman. We can't have them thinking the Phoenicians did it. We can't have them thinking some other civilization did it.
That's
Make
not
it
true.
Roman. So they go and they quarry up 3 more stones. Hang on. They quarry up 3 more stones. They're going to put them in there. The dude's tasked with moving those stones. Look at them and go, are you on crack? There's no way we can move those fucking things. And so they get left in the ground.
That's not right.
No, okay, then what explanation do you
Okay,
have?
First of all, there's examples of Romans taking over older temples and then admitting for example, the temple of Baal Hamon in Carthage.
Mm-hmm.
That was a famous temple that the Carthaginians built. They took it over and said, now it's the temple of Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say we built it. They didn't take credit for it. So the whole point, the end of the debate for me is this: there's no one talking about this location until after the Roman period.
And so why did the Romans build the largest temple to Jupiter there?
Because they can.
No. Why there?
Because that was the temp. That was the
Because they were building on the biggest stones in the fucking
because
world
that's
already,
that's
and they
the
had to make it
location-
look right.
That's the location where the Greeks already were worshiping Zeus Heliopolitanus.
Mm-hmm.
So now it became Jupiter Heliopolitanus. It's this. The location was already a sacred location.
Okay,
that's why they built it.
I agree that the sacred was already
Yeah.
sacred. Why did they build the biggest one there? Because they had to match what was already there, which is why they quarried 3 stones to the ground. I mean, again, we can go back to this all you want, but if I say that this was built by Americans and this was measured out in meters, I got a fucking problem, dude. And that stone you're saying was built by Romans was not measured with the Roman foot.
I don't know who measured it or how they got that size.
You can get the measurements
but
all over.
but I do know from what I've been told from people who study this stuff is that those blocks underneath it are definitely Roman.
Yeah, that's
So you can't get a giant stone above something that's already
I think a
Roman.
child can see that there's two different stages of construction here.
No, that's how they built the Herod's wall. It gets smaller and it gets progressively smaller on top. That's how Herod's wall is built. We just saw it.
Herod's wall was not built identical to that. This is two different stages of construction. Similar. It's similar.
It's very, very, very similar.
You could
both
even
get
say they tried to emulate
smaller.
this.
They both get progressively smaller the higher you go. And the pyramid even does that, by the way. That's
Well, yeah, but you could say that they tried to emulate, but the pyramid maintains the same style of stones. These guys did not.
There's only two off that.
One of these has beveled edges, and one of these is a rough hewn stone. There's a huge difference in the style of architecture, and again,
But I think that's how they were trying to do it. They're trying to
sure,
make it look
we can argue that all we want, but the fact of the matter is, in my mind, the evidence is pretty clear that the Romans had to have hid. What explanation are there for the three stones being left in the ground besides they couldn't move them? I mean, the fucking place is done. Because, they wanted to have three more stones to match the three that were already there. That makes sense. There's no other explanation to me that makes sense, especially when you compare the difference in measurements. Now, I'll concede that there isn't talk of Baalbek from before. As I said, it was a backwater for the most part, which is really weird that they would build it's a bigger temple to Jupiter than the one in Rome. Why did they do that? Because they had to claim this. And now I understand that you can say that
there was a Greek structure there before.
Yeah,
it was something different.
But it wasn't nothing like that.
No. I know everyone agrees with that.
And so
but it was the temple of Zeus, Heliopolitanus, and that's why the city's called Heliopolis.
Yeah. It was the city of the sun over there even. But what I'm getting at,
it was a big deal. People were pilgrimaging there.
Eventually,
Lucian wrote on the Syrian goddess about Venus wrote all about this place.
Mm-hmm. But it wasn't considered. How do you put it? It wasn't considered anomalous until after the Romans got through with it, as far as we know. But this is again, when we've tried to move stones like this is where in my mind, you can't just say we have a dude who wrote down how to move those stones, so we did it. It's like Catherine the Great moved the Thunderstone, okay? And when they were moving that, she put it on an iron sledge, and they used brass balls to roll it on. And they repeatedly crushed these brass balls, and they kept having to change the metallurgy involved. And now they used iron screw jacks, to lift this thing every time they did it, like what you'd use to jack up the floor of a house.
I've heard people say that the Romans were better at lifting stone than
they can say that all they want, but they had to. This is at the time when structural steel just began. The tower, the London Bridge was new at this point. The steel London Bridge.
Yeah.
Okay. Iron buildings were now just becoming a thing, and they took the cutting edge metallurgy and a shitload of resources from one of the richest empires in the world to move one stone that's not quite that big. Now, we can say, to me, we're just dismissing and say, well, the Romans could have. That's great,
Let's talk about the Romans, though. We know the Romans also carried a 500-ton obelisk from Aswan.
They didn't carry it; they rolled it.
Yeah, I'm saying they brought it there.
Yeah, they rolled it.
So there's ways to bring. We know the Romans are capable of carrying 500-ton weights.
We also know that they left 3 big ass stones in the ground right there, and went on with that site like they didn't do nothing.
What is that? 700 tons or something?
Yeah, something like that.
So they tried to break a record and they failed.
Yeah. Okay,
that's different than what
doing. Again, that doesn't show that they failed. It shows that the person that walked up on this said, "Fuck that noise."
But it also shows they were doing it though.
Yeah, they were trying to do it. It shows they tried.
Yeah, but if they're trying to
failed,
do it, they might have did it already.
Well, sure, but that explanation. If I tried to communicate with the Palladians, maybe I've done it already. It makes more sense to me
that they
and that's
did
not
it already.
Evidence.
It makes more sense that they did it already. Try to do it again. Maybe realized, all right, this is getting out of hand. Someone just died.
Right, we just crushed 12 people.
Yeah. Maybe, that's what makes sense to me.
Well, sure, and it would make if they didn't change their unit of measurement and shit, that would make some sense to me too. But that part, honestly, the unit of measurement's the sticking point. It's like we measured it out with the Roman foot. Oh, we didn't measure these ones out with the Roman foot. What's that all about? We got different tape measures this week. It's
that's something I never looked into. Why this different size? I would like to see if it could show what it looks like at the final product. It's beautiful looking. You know what it looks like, right? Mm-hmm. Just for the audience to see the Baalbek
Yeah,
temple
because
of
all
Jup-
the Atlantis bros always show the backside.
It's one of the almost beautiful. It's up there with the mausoleum, the pyramid. You know.
No, it's amazing. It really is.
You're looking for a picture from the inside?
I mean, they have a that's
from-
what it looks like now. Is there might be a reconstruction of what the finished product looked like. Look at those columns.
Yeah, I know. but
Corinthian columns,
they're
gigantic.
Pieces.
Those are
Those are
400 tons each.
They're pieces.
Aren't they stacked though, right?
Yeah, they're pieces. Look
Yeah.
at it. You can see it. They're
Yeah. Oh, the ones in the Pantheon are are one piece.
Yeah.
Those are those are huge.
Yeah. So those weren't 400
Look at that.
tons. They were
No, you're right.
Now,
Good
if
call,
the
good call.
Romans had built this thing all the way in the front, that trilithon would be staring you in the face when you walked up that ramp. That's why they
I don't
built
think
this
so,
giant
because-
ass ramp. That's why the columns. Why aren't the columns off to the side? For the same reason.
what are we
you are
looking
to
at?
feel
This is
blown away.
this is what the whole place would have looked like.
This is
in
the
the
Temple of
time
Jupiter.
and the big stones
in the
are-
100s AD or first century.
And where are the big stones?
Yeah,
on the
let's
back
Go
side.
back to that.
Yeah,
picture.
on the-
that's,
on
this
the
is actually
very
worth
back.
doing. Oh, this is okay. Cool.
This is better.
The big
maybe.
stones are on the very back side.
Yeah,
They're like
I
in the
want to
back
show
corner.
the
Let's-
audience
can
where
we,
the stone
Can we
is.
pause, Ryan? Go back to the picture from the outside of the place. So I don't know what entrance we just went into on that video. Tell me where the big stones are right
Behind
here.
that temple on the right.
Behind the back right,
right,
yeah.
temple. So it's on the back wall of that
Yep.
temple. Okay. And when on the video, Ryan, are we going into that back building or the front step?
The front. I
The
think.
front. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Got it. Thank you.
Now-
My apology.
Okay, go ahead. Now I think it's still people still see behind there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they're still showing it off. It's not like it's just like completely hidden.
Well, no, but I mean, it's like walking into a cathedral and having the main foyer area have ceilings like this, and then you walk into the bathroom and it's just got this gigantic vaulted ceiling that makes you feel 2 feet tall. It completely is backwards as to the whole purpose of having that vaulted ceiling. The whole point of having this gigantic stone is you can't imagine how this was done, sir. So we'll put it in the back. Don't make no sense. Don't make no sense.
Just looking at how impressive everything is here, lifting a giant stone to me isn't that much crazy.
There's one thing that we're still in awe of today. There's one thing people still argue about today, and it ain't about the columns.
Do you know during this time period, this exact time period in Alexandria, Roman Alexandria, they had heated floors. They had vending machines
Yeah,
that you
Well,
put a
drop
coin in
and get so much holy water. Or
Yes,
whatnot. Yeah.
they
Oh,
had
yeah.
all. So this was a technologically advanced time period.
Yeah.
The Antikythera mechanism obviously was before this. This is after Archimedes. So they knew how to do. They know how to make screws.
Yeah.
They knew how to do all types of stuff.
They knew all kind, but they didn't have structural
Steam
steel.
engines. There was Hero of Alexandria built a steam engine.
No. He built a steam toy.
But this technology was lost
just,
until later.
He needed a flywheel. Otherwise, that was never going to do nothing. It was just going to spin. Need a flywheel.
So that video didn't show the big stones and where
No,
those would have been.
the big ones are in the
I
very
thought they would
back.
show it.
Sorry.
Yeah, all good.
But
But yeah,
So
but
just to give the audience an idea of what we're talking about.
It's freaking impressive, man. I'd never seen that
It's
before.
amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the one thing that I've heard about this argument in the past from the alternative community is that the erosion on the big stones is completely different than the erosion on the regular stones.
you can see it.
Can we get a picture of that maybe and talk through that?
Yeah, just that picture of any of the ones you can see it. The big ones.
Well, I mean, it's a gigantic. It does have a different. It just stands out. I mean,
But can we get a? Yeah, that's a little blurry, but that's.
I mean, yeah.
it does. It does stand out. It does.
Yeah, it
The
does.
erosion stands out.
Well,
You mean, or the stone?
difference in the whatever.
I'll ask you, why do the stones underneath the trilithon lack the beveled edges as the ones above? That right there just shows this to me that there's two different crews involved.
It almost looks like they were trying to make the bevels go higher up, and maybe, I don't know. Maybe that wasn't there.
I'm a
dirt,
retailer. What's
Wasn't
a
there
bevel?
dirt up until the top part, or where the bevel is, or something?
Where's the bevel?
Right in the middle.
The where?
Yeah, where it curves.
Yep. Thank you.
So, yeah, I don't know. This is something I do need to look into more. I wish I was more prepared on this one.
See the frames on the stones on the left, and you can see them on the right as well. But each one of those is kind of framed and kind of notched in.
Yeah.
And then you see that lowest level of stones underneath the trilithon, the lowest one we can see, and how it's got a bunch of small blocks, and none of those have the edges notched in like that. They're all just like the ones above it and worked. I mean, to me, this is clearly two different styles of building here.
I've heard someone say the reason for it was actually to save time.
Well, it's
Because
possible,
if
but
you can get one gigantic block instead of transporting all these block, it takes time. One of them, even though it's heavier and harder to lift and harder to pull, whatever it is, once you get that on there, you just a whole chunk of the whole building's done now.
Well, there's only one problem with that. Oh, we got to move it by another 2 inches. Oh shit! 2 more people die.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
no, I agree.
Find adjustments on that scale is all but impossible.
I'll say this to agree with you that it's very mysterious.
Yeah,
I'll definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's.
But your percent that it's Roman.
I think it's 95%. I'm going to the same number.
Percentage is Roman 0%.
Wow.
The lack of the Roman foot, the lack
Zero.
of the lack of the Roman foot to me said, it's all honesty. It's if you measure something in the studs in this wall are on 24 or on 16-inch centers. Period. End of story. They're not on 12-meter centers, 12-millimeter centers, 12-centimeter. And if it is, that means some Brit was in here building.
Are you saying every other stone is on that metric
I'm saying
system?
the three big ones in the ground have the Roman foot used as their unit of measurement. The 3 big ones in the wall do not.
Can you ask how far is Baalbek from the Jerusalem temple? Because I actually think, and I'm not even, this is not even me citing scholars, I have a crazy theory that the same people built this, that built Herod's.
Yeah, you were not the first person I've heard say that.
Really?
The same construction crew.
Same construction crew. It's the same part of the world, the same time period. And the
I
same
think the
style.
people that built Herod's wall were inspired by this.
Maybe.
But just trying
That's
to
a
play,
possibility.
Trying to play. It's their Bass
fine
Pro
with that.
Shop.
200 miles. Yeah, it's pretty. 6 to 8 hours. Yeah, it's pretty far. But, who knows? Maybe they imported them or,
Get there on one charge.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So that's a good one, man. That's you guys. That's.
Can I say real quick before we walk
please.
off of this?
Yeah,
I think it's important to note, me and Neal probably both agree on this. You probably would too, Matt. That according to evolution, stone was like the premier material for humans to use for like literally millions of years. So father teaches son, who teaches son, who teaches son. And then we get metalworking, and in a couple of generations, I mean, what do you know about horseback riding? Would your great-grandpa laugh at you if he saw you on a horse? I know mine would, right? So quickly, these skills get lost. It's a time. So I think if we were to watch a lot of these things be done, I don't think we'd be like, holy shit. I think we'd be like, oh, really? You fucking kidding me? That's all that?
That's all I had to do?
I think it would be a lot of it.
Yeah. There's some videos of people showing, and like in their backyards, like random private people figuring out how to move gigantic megalithic. You've seen these
for
before,
sure.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wally Wallington, the
You
most
just
famous.
put them
of
on a
the-
little rock or whatever.
Yeah, you can move them around pretty good.
But it has to be
So
very controlled
Sometimes gravity
environments.
helps you,
Yeah. Very controlled situations in those always.
Yeah,
It's important to mention.
So we've been going a number of hours here now, probably three and a half or something like that, maybe 3. What do you guys think? Gunung Padang, or do you want to call it a day? How you feeling?
Whatever's
Hey,
clever.
I don't know
I'm
much
good to
about
go.
Gunung Padang. If you want to tell me what you think about it, I'll just give you my opinion. I'm really
that
it's
works. It'll be
something
quick,
I've never
quick.
really looked into that much, but I'm interested.
All right, cool.
Yeah, the site of Gunung Padang's over in Java, in Indonesia. Dr. Danny Hilmanadi Wajawa is a geologist who did initial stuff there.
Came on this show. Great
He
guy.
did. Yeah, he's a really good guy. I got to meet him at the Cosmic Summit. He was blown away because we were on an Atlantis panel to debate, and he was getting up to drink coffee while I was still 2-fisting Coronas out back. But yes, he believes that this site was a man-made artificial hill, that it's been built up over 25,000 years or so. Mainstream academia disagrees, and really a lot of it, what it comes down to is the debate over artifacts that were found. Since he's a geologist, he just kind of took soil samples. And you don't see any archaeologists out there shaking screens looking for debitage. So they've got a handful of artifacts that they debate back and forth as to whether or not they're true. The Kajang stone's probably the most famous. It resembles a dagger, but there's a couple other stones too that look like artifacts. But what it really comes down to is how old that site actually is being kind of held up by the powers that be, going back and forth, politics and tourism and everything else ends up cock blocking proper research. There's lava tubes potentially. There's chambers underneath there according to the radar scans, and the lava tube is a good.
Are these Beyond radar scans, or are they like?
No, these are not beyond these scans.
This ground penetrating.
These are
radar.
ground penetrating radar. God, poor Ryan. He's gonna die back there.
I'm just making sure.
No, these are not synthetic aperture radar scans, but the bottom of it, like when Graham Hancock put it on Ancient Apocalypse, that there is potentially chambers inside of it, these voids. These are just natural lava tubes. Nothing to see here was quickly put out there, and it's like, dude, I mean, do you know nothing about the ancient world? It's like, how many pyramids are built over springs or lava tubes or caves? Or come on, this is so and so. Anyway. Dr. Nadiwa Jawa believes that this place is like 25,000 years old. The mainstream scientists think that it's nuts that only the top level or so has been messed with. He thinks that he's found fill dirt. Basically, in my opinion, what we really need is another team out there that's not beholden to anybody, but it's in a poor part of the world, so you end up with that never being feasible. It's like trying to go dig in Egypt. Good luck with that. But yeah, there's a good possibility that this has been used for thousands of years. And that's not, even if it was 25,000 years old and people have been modifying it, it's, cutting and stacking basalt columns isn't, too crazy. It's not too complicated.
And people were in this area for that
long.
Oh, hell,
and Neanderthal were there 60,000 years ago at least.
Yeah, that's not.
And it's perfect. It's a perfect place. It's like right on the lake, right?
Yeah,
it's like just beautiful real estate.
Yeah, it's nice. Look at the grass there. People trampling all over it. And clearly a lot of artificial modification has happened there, but how much of that hill underneath is artificial or not?
What is all that rubble for there?
That's those are basalt columns. You see on the right, you can see the kind of natural basalt. Nan Padal, the large columnar basalt.
Yeah.
Okay, they make these huge.
That's
things.
a mystery. That place.
I'm sorry.
That's a mystery.
That place is a huge mystery. Yeah. One of those places where you wish that it's like Easter Island to me, where you wish you could talk to the indigenous population before they just, because then you could really learn something. So excuse my French, but. You knew what you're getting into, Matt.
Yeah, I did. We gotta mute you with some of that just for the algorithm.
For the algorithm.
I think.
Sorry, I apologize.
You're good, man. No worries. Rather you be
why
real and then we can
right?
fix it later. Right? Yeah.
But yeah, they stack a lot of this. There's a place there where they have musical stones set up. Nobody knows how old it is, but there's stones that have different intonations, and you go rub them or tap them or whatever, and they make their different songs. And yeah, this is. There's it's quite possibly a lot there, and that's really what's frustrating to me. Is it like one ruler of the area was like threw everything at it, dig, go crazy, and the next ruler came up, next president got elected, he kicked everybody off the site, and now he's all mainstream.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it's frustrating because the site, saying it's a 25,000-year-old pyramid, will get Graham Hancock's attention. Getting Graham Hancock's attention is a guaranteed way to making every other scientist on the planet wince and moan and bitch and cry about it.
And take the other side.
And take the other side. So then we end up where we can't.
It's true.
It is. So? It's ridiculously true.
Not everybody.
Not everybody. But yes.
But I mean, when he comes out and says something like that, people are going to question.
They want to, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some of that going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that way. With people are people. We always deal with the same issues, just different skins, different suits.
So good. So that's kind of the overview of the site. But
yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yeah. It's something to look into more for you, probably.
Definitely.
It's a fascinating
Where
place.
exactly is this thing?
Indonesia. It's on the island of Java.
Yeah. Well, good, man. This has been epic, you guys. Super appreciated. Yeah. Any kind of and great job to both of you.
Now it's time for the fist fight. Now.
Yeah.
Is archaeology a science? They could end it with that, and if they have our fight, be over quick. No, clearly not.
Go for it. Why is it not?
Why it's not a science? Because it does some scientific things, but it comes to conclusions that are not necessarily scientific. They're just a story. It's just an idea, and that's not, it's not a scientific. Most of our hypotheses are not scientific. They fail all the metrics of replicability and of proper experimentation and stuff. They take a few pieces of data and make a mountain out of a molehill.
And I just think it's arguing from what we know, the data, the evidence, all the sources are saying this. They're all Khufu, 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 Khufu. And then for 1,000, 2,000 years, we think we have all this source. And then we stumble on another source, and another papyrus gets found, and that also says Khufu. It's like you just kind of, Occam's razor just says that all the evidence is pointing to this one thing. If there's, for the carbon dating, for example, maybe it's a little off. I'm going to kind of lean towards where the evidence is pulling me back towards. So at the end of the day, look, I understand there's interpretations to be made from the data, and there could be room for error there. But I do think ultimately the methods are sound. So
I have a problem with Sacsayhuaman and the Sacred Valley in general being conclusively hammer and chisel done by the Inca in 100 years or whatever. I mean, that one for me is hard to get past. Having been there and scouted the whole freaking place and just seen the amazing how those blocks come together.
Yeah, no, that is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, the amazing stonework. But yeah, they're doing their best for sure. They're trying to put together, what
I won't argue with that.
Yeah, what the best story is, and it's like a lot more science can get a lot higher percentage chance of being accurate than archaeology can, because you're digging up stuff. You're digging up stuff from the past and doing your best to be able to tell that story of the history. But yeah, a lot of other sciences can repeat tests and can conclusively state things more effectively. So is it a science? So depending on your perspective, I guess, but it's a science with generally, I'd say, a lower probability of certainty than a lot of other sciences have, probably.
And I would argue that translates into the ego-driven responses that we see from people that are kind of know they're LARPing as scientists, but don't want to admit that they're LARPing as scientists. So this is how it is. Yeah, come on, dude.
There's ego everywhere.
Like I said to you during the break, I mean, in the field that I'm really familiar with is the biblical studies, early Christianity, stuff like that, and it's flooded with people who sign statements of faith, who are working for universities that are literally Catholic or Christian, and so I've seen it firsthand, where you can have biases in people who have PhDs.
Tell me what you mean by statement of faith.
So to get a master's degree for biblical studies, you go through what's called a divinity school. And a lot of these divinity schools are purchased by a church or a Catholic church or owned by some sort of church. And a lot of times they make their students sign a document called a statement of faith. And I'll give Ryan one to show on the screen right now to edit it in. I'll show you a screenshot of one right now where you literally have to say, oh, he found one already. Wow. See, look, Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, statement of faith. They have to sign a thing that says, I believe Jesus. Look, we believe in one God, creator of all things. These are PhDs. These are people who are doctors. And they have to sign this. So I understand why people, and I guess the point I'm making here at the end of this is like, yes, scholars are not perfect and they can get in cliques. They can be biased. There can be people who call themselves doctors and they think they're doing science, but they're actually pushing some sort of agenda. That can happen. And I've seen it with biblical studies. Now, I don't think that's happening in Egyptology. Maybe you do, but I'm leveling with you is like, these things are possible. Yeah. There is no like foolproof thing that academia is perfect and it's always going to bring us in the right place. So, and at the end of the day, it's all just people. It's all private people from different countries, different universities coming together, trying to write a dissertation, trying to get hired, trying to make money, trying to do something, add to our knowledge bases. So it's going to have flaws.
Yeah,
because people are flawed.
And I'm okay with that, but I'm also, if a cop says, I didn't mean to beat that dude with the stick, but he spit in my face and it just fucking rubbed me the wrong way. We don't tolerate that. Scientists are supposed to be emotionally detached from their work, and I don't give them much credence for. Not much more than I would for a cop hitting somebody with a stick because they're angry. It's like, dude, your job is to be impartial, and if you know that you're getting emotional and you haven't figured out a way to walk away from it, go flip burgers. I'm straight up. I'll be an ass about it. But if you can't do the job right, you can't do the job.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people who they go through the motions, they're very fortunate that they get to become, but most people, when they go to college, they're trying to find a job that makes money, business, doctor.
Call me crazy.
The people who go for humanities most of the time come from some well-off And a lot of them go through the motions, they get their degree, and they just kind of I've seen this a lot. I've seen a lot of scholars who just repeat the status quo, and they might not, then you can try to, this happens a lot in biblical studies, for example, where you can sort of see they know the answer, but they don't know why the answer is the answer. They just repeat it. There's a lot of that. There's a lot. And by the way, and scholars that are watching this right now are nodding their heads, go, yeah, I know. They agree with me on this. Yeah. There's a lot of people with PhDs out there who should be doing something else. Yeah. They're just not cut out for this.
Well, a lot in the scientific community, Flint, they become public-facing scientists. Like, although they can't do anything real, then they just like they turn and talk to the masses. And
I mean, there's a demand for that, though.
Well, there is a demand for that. I think the internet, there's an argument to be made that the internet, while it's let people like all of us have a voice that we would never used to have been able to have, it's also, it's allowed scientists to. We no longer just see Carl Sagans and other people that are articulated and intelligent and the kind of guy you wouldn't mind dating your daughter talking to you about this stuff. Nowadays, we get the dregs of society that are just screaming and yelling. The scientists that can't barely tie their shoes. And a lot of these guys are probably really good at their specific little thing, but as soon as they veer outside of it, you end up with some insanity.
And I've noticed, speaking about Dunning-Kruger, it's not just amateurs that have Dunning-Kruger. By the way, I have Dunning-Kruger. I'll give you just a quick time to give you an example.
Please.
There was a time where I thought I was so smart because if you never heard of the Merneptah stele, it's the first mention of Israel from the reign of Merneptah. It's like 1350 BC. It's the first time Israel's ever mentioned. It's in Egyptian. It's in hieroglyphics. And I was very minimalist. I was very critical, and I went to read the stele myself. I wanted to see what it said. And I read it, and I read the transcription of it, and the hieroglyphs actually doesn't say Israel; it says Isir, Isirrir, and I was like, oh, the consensus is wrong. This is not Israel. This is some other place called Isir. Maybe it's Assyria or something. And I thought I was so smart for like a year. I was pushing back on scholars on Twitter, like, you're an idiot. That's not what it says. This is the consensus is wrong. And then someone who actually knows then I ran into my match one day, and it was someone who actually knows hieroglyphs very well. And he's like, no, the rule for hieroglyphs, the R is actually an L. The same hieroglyph for the R sound is il. It's like the roll of your tongue. Mm-hmm. So it's Israel. Yeah. He goes, that's how you spell Israel. That's the only way to spell Israel. He goes, that's Israel. And I'm like, and then by the way, and all the other places mentioned are all around Israel too. Yeah. So I was like, I was like, I'm done. Yeah. I'm like, I'm cooked. And it was a Dunning-Kruger moment. So we all had that. Yeah. But scholars who are specialists in one area get puffed up because they think they know methodology. So they think they can take their specialization. Let's say they study mummies, and all of a sudden they see an amateur talking about what's another thing, ancient metal or something, and they're like, I think he's wrong. And then they get puffed up, and there's a different kind of Dunning-Kruger where they think because they know this one field and they're an expert in this one field that they're an expert in all these other fields. That was my video on Dan McClellan. That was my critique of Dan McClellan. He's a great Old Testament biblical scholar, knows the Old Testament, knows Hebrew very well. But once he starts talking about Greek mythology and Roman mythology, his brain falls out of his head. So I did a whole video, like 2-hour video. He was on Danny Jones, and Danny Jones was asking him questions, and it was like so bad. And I made a video about him, and I just wanted to show, look, real PhDs who are real experts, they can be Dunning-Kruger too. Yeah. So
there's one thing I wanted to say that kind of address the overall thing about with the tweet that started this whole thing. Just idiots or people that don't know any better weighing in on things and whatnot. So, have you ever heard of Carl Christian Raffin? He's I
think so.
Which is a anthropologist from about 120 years ago, about 200 years ago.
Very familiar.
He was the guy that first posited that the Norse found America before.
Oh yeah,
Columbus.
that's right. Yeah.
His reasoning was he didn't believe Indians could carve hieroglyphs or glyphs. So anytime he saw any sort of glyph, it had to have been a white dude that made it. This completely wrong thinking led him to eventually the right discovery of Eric the Red coming over here first, Leif Erikson and all that shit. He's the one who discovered that. He was pissing up a rope until he found the right thing. If somebody's doing honest research, you might disagree with everything they're doing, but if they're actually in there doing it honestly, they're going to find evidence that you're not going to. They're looking at things from a different perspective. And so, like the idea that other people don't know it. But for example, I was the first person to start hammering away at the Roman foot on Baalbek. Everybody else was talking about the size of it and this and that and that. And I was like, well, what did the Romans do for this? And it, as a construction guy, it came up very quickly. Different people think about things from different perspectives. So assuming that, for example, Ben Van Kerkwyk, I disagree with his high technology stuff. However, there's no question that even the skeptics now are saying, well, you know, the ancient Egyptians had a lathe a couple thousand years earlier than we gave them credit for. Well, they ain't saying it, but Ben's the one that brought them there. Ben's the one that dragged the evidence up and shoved it in their damn face and said, look. And now they don't give him credit, but he is the one to go find me the video 5 years ago of one of those guys saying something like that. You won't. It's not until about 2 years ago, after the scans. That was when you really start seeing that. And again, as long as it's the people that are dishonest. I always use the metaphor of a car keys. If we're at your house and I lose my keys, I don't care if you have 1,001 ideas as to where they are. It's the third time you tell me they're under the couch. We both know they're not, that I'm going to have a problem with you. You might think they're in the refrigerator. That's stupid, but let's check the refrigerator. So I think it's important to keep a bit more of an open mind, which it's easy to assume somebody on the internet doesn't know anything, but quite often they just don't know the same thing you do.
Fair. Yeah,
That's true.
Great. Yeah, great closing comments, both of you guys. Really appreciate you coming out. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you guys for not getting too violent and aggressive with each other. Y'all handled this really, really well. Very professional. So really good stuff. Love this episode. First debate that I've ever done on this show. So thank you guys for
Nice.
being
First debate I've done since high school. So
nice,
unless arguments at the bar count.
No, that doesn't. But
I did a
yeah.
debate 2 days ago.
Oh,
Did
nice.
you really? Okay.
It's just an online one.
You're pro. You're pro. But excellent. Great stuff, guys. Really enjoyed it. And we'll be in touch.
Nice. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.